only ever got one loose sheet, I think. Well, we got 3 races on the course, haven't we, this morning?
2? I think it's
just 2.
Just the 2 at the same
okay.
time. It's the Girls Canoe 1 and C1.
C1. At least we only,
keep it
cozy.
Euros,
we only had
stand by.
Years later, they'll come back and they're paddling in the pool of water that the other boats. You must always just look at the space in front of you. That's Kisley laying down the law. Here comes Cova. It's Cova, he's taking Campos on. Stroke by stroke, he's going past him. And he's gone past him like he's standing still.
What a race! What a race!
God, be calm, get in. Be calm, be calm, be calm. The Hungarians are away.
South Africans are away, side by side.
But it's Hungary. Hungary take the initiative. Just a mass of quality paddling. See collision in the background.
World champ.
Look at that.
From
that's going to be
Republic.
That's going to be tears. It's going to be laughing. Yeah. She can't believe it.
She's so happy.
Look to the back of Portage and Salty, and that was clean. That's perfect. Egan is going to get squeezed out. That is dangerously close to the edge.
It is McGregor! It is McGregor! No one has given up. Portage is hanging on. Alonso is hanging on. Gold medalist Hank McGregor, South Africa!
Well, everybody, wherever you are in the world, a warm good morning from Camps Drift in Pietermaritzburg, a waterway in the center of the city, in the center of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, on the eastern seaboard of South Africa, for day 1 of the 2017 ICF Canoe Marathon Flatwater World Champs. My name is Dave McLeod. It's a pleasure to be part of a commentary team that includes Ivan Lawler and Stott and Doug Bird, who will be keeping you entertained and informed over the next 4 days. And it's an absolute perler of a day in Pietermaritzburg. In fact, it's going to get really hot. The temperatures are forecast to get into the mid to upper 30s. On the water at the moment. Ivan Lawler, pleasure to have you in Pietermaritzburg, back in South Africa. Amped up for the junior girls. They always have to break the ice, don't they?
Absolutely, Dave. I mean, we were just saying the races start well here and they get stronger and stronger. We got the start list there, second down from the top. Dorina Facchetti, European champion, very impressive there. Portage in a bit weak, but just watch her get into her boat, Dave. She's in tears. There's something clearly not right with her this morning. I haven't been able to find out what it is yet, but she didn't look the full ticket getting into her boat. In this race also, we got a second Hungarian. You can't write off any Hungarian in the junior women. Chico Soka there. And Florence Duffield, fourth at the Europeans. Rita Fernandez, third at the Europeans. There's a lot of quality in this race, and as they come to the line now, the tension will start to build. And it's not just the tension for this morning, Dave, it's the tension for the whole weekend. It's going to build from here.
Well, I mean, last night we had a fantastic opening ceremony, and you could just feel the tension rack up because the reality of the starting just hits home on every paddler. There's the rest of the field, 17 in the field. Caitlin McKenzie, one of the two McKenzie girls in the start line representing the host country, South African, along with Christy. They're actually cousins, so quite a cool moment as the two cousins get on the water. A huge opportunity for them. Capucine Dubourg representing France in that lineup as well. See what Portugal's Rita Fernandez has got. And Florence Duffield on the water in Team GB colours.
Well, Rita Fernandez, well, 16 and 17 there, Fernandez and Duffield, third and fourth at the Europeans. Both very strong there, both in the front group for a while until the Hungarians eventually ran away from them at Portage. But it's going to be a really good race, really good race.
And then at the same time, or a couple of minutes later, we've got three girls who are going to be starting in the C1 Junior Women race. 3 entries, so it is effectively a demo race. There's no medals up for grabs, and we can talk about it during the race, but you've got a Polish, Hungarian and French boat on the start line.
It's a demo race, Dave, but you've got a world champion, and European second place. I mean, it's not a big field, but it is quality, and when you're watching those races, to see quality is a relief to start with. I mean, quantity is something, but you do need quality in those races.
So down on the start line, they're under starters' orders. There's an aerial look at Camps Drift in Pietermaritzburg. It's a waterway which is created by 2 weirs. The lap they're going to be racing is 3.4 kilometers. Here we are zooming in on our start venue here. The start just outside the NCC clubhouse, and it's a fantastic spectacle for the people who've pitched up to watch, because you can see the start, the finish. You can see 90% of the course. So from the start line, they're going to be moving upriver. We're on the Umsunduzi River. They head up to the top turn can, which is just below the weir. This is effectively winter and spring, so there's no river flow here. There's absolutely no current. It's 1.3 kilometers up to that top turn can. They turn, they head downriver. They go back under the bridge. It's a 1.7 kilometer pull down to the bottom turn can. They take a gentle left-hand turn, and we're going to talk about this left-hand turn because it is a slightly shallower bit of the river. Bottom turn, the first lap is always a full lap. On the second and subsequent laps, everybody comes in for a portage. The portage is around 100 meters. And then on that final lap, this is the portage. They're going to be taking out on, which is a jetty portage. They run across a small incline onto the grass. It's about 100 meters. They put back in, and then all the subsequent laps will be done like that. The final lap is 500 meters up to the short turn can. This is the short, you can see it marked there. And then 500 meters back down. So it's around 1,000. And Ivan, that's going to be key. Everybody would have practiced that over and over again.
Absolutely. It's such a short distance from the last portage to the turn. It makes the portage so crucial. And you see mistakes when stress creeps in. There was all sorts going on at the Europeans earlier this year. But for now, junior women backing onto the start pontoon. They're nearly all there. They always bunch them up really tight. When you're the paddler, you really don't want that. You're looking at all the spare pontoon thinking, geez, man, I could have a whole load of comfort and relaxation here. But no, you want us all piled on top of each other. It does add to the stress. It does add to the excitement. But as a paddler, stress and excitement.
Oh.
See, she's trying to back into a gap that doesn't really exist there. That's number 13. Was from Sweden, Julia Lagerström.
Rita Fernandez on a shot there. Gee, the girls are looking so nervous. The girls, by the way, on the pontoon, the red and blue kit is Epworth School just down the road. They're volunteering to do the help on the pontoons. But look at them. There's scarcely a paddle's breadth between them. Nerves will be jangling. And off they go. The 2017 World's underway.
It always looked like a full size. Someone in the middle there who went early. And they'll recall them, take them back. And you've been there. And I'm sitting next to Ant Stott, previous world champion. It's so stressful sitting on that start line, isn't it?
It is. It is quite stressful. You know, you got to get that first stroke in. It's that first stroke really counts, especially when you're as tightly packed as what you said, Ivan. So to get your paddle in with the guys so close to you is quite stressful. And the big thing is just try and get away as cleanly as possible, so your nerves are on high edge, and anything can get you off, get your nerves going and get you started. So yeah, these girls are looking quite stressed, but I'm sure the second start will be perfect.
The key to starting when you're close like that and you pull away after 5 strokes, you're all pretty much level, just the same. But the nervous paddlers always look at the other paddlers. The confident paddlers always look at the gap that they want to go to. All the good paddlers see is gaps and opportunities. All the nervous paddlers see is chaos. And it's a huge difference in how your mental state is at that stage. So all these girls, I mean, you don't get many of these, have done many races of this quality. Junior, you normally see a 2-year throughput. I think the only one in here from 3 years ago is Julie Hark from Germany. So experience levels are low, stress levels are high, and that always leads to a bit of nerves.
Was talking to one of the elite women yesterday who said the most disarming thing coming into the build-up of a big race is to see one of your big competitors laughing and chuckling. If they're that relaxed and chilled, you know you're in for a long day on the water.
That's just standard athlete insecurity, Dave. I mean, every time I warmed up for any race I ever did, whether I thought I was going to win or not, everyone else looked faster than me in the warm-up. That's just life. So as they back onto the pontoon, hopefully this time they'll be away clear. You can see the nerves, and away they go. It's good this time. So you're looking at the middle of the field there. 8, Shoka Shikos from Hungary, and on the near side, Dorina Fichetti. On the far side, Flo Duffield in the blue boat and Fernandez in the white boat. But it's 58, which is Chikos from Hungary.
Oh, and we have a swimmer. My word, we've got
2
swimmers
already.
at the start.
That's 68, it looks like, which, no, it's not. Sorry, I can't see the numbers.
It's Julia Lagerstam who's come unstuck at the start. And it's Caitlin McKenzie, the local girl. Oh, she's going to be gutted. She was so excited for this opportunity, but Caitlin McKenzie and Hilga Lagerstam have both come unglued. Must have caught paddles in that frenzy, and it goes straight back to what Ivan was saying about being so close together.
They're helping each other get in the boats there. That's pretty cool, to be fair.
That's great sportsmanship.
There's the leader. That's Shikos from Hungary.
She got the whole shot beautifully off the start line.
Rita Fernandez from Portugal on the outside of that group. She was 3rd in the Europeans. Flo Duffield, 19, in the blue stripy boat. 10, tucked in the back there, Teresa Isotta. She was 5th at the Europeans. And you can see, yeah, that's a fairly well-controlled, well-organised group, especially for junior women. Got all the V-washes filled up there. So often you see them strung out. But no, it's a well-educated group there as they head up towards the top turn. Top group of about 10.
I see Erin Blanche of Australia scratching on the outside there. Not a good place to be. The set of boys that you see them coming up to, that's the short turn can for the final lap. The paddle up to the top turn can is 1.3 kilometers. And it's a big group. There's 8 or 9 on the front wave, and then there's quite an extended wave spreading out to the left. And you see there's quite a bit of jockeying of position, because coming up into that first turn, Ivan, is going to be key. We'll talk about this a lot, but the marathon racing rules are really key. The girl sitting at the front, in this case, Chikos, is in full control over that racing line. And when you've got a bunch of 10, 12 coming into that first turn can, that racing line is king.
It's really hard. The rules are written down of how you're supposed to do it. But actually, the rules are kind of inbuilt into all the athletes. You don't want to have contact. It doesn't help anyone. You want to keep yourself safe as your first priority. At this level, junior women, maybe not everyone behaves predictably, but safety is key. And you can see 52 there coming up on the outside. That's Dorina Fichetti. She couldn't get past, though. She was trying to get to her teammate's side wash. Second wash out is always a lot harder than the first wash. I think that's Jula Hark, held her off from Germany there. But for now, that was Mackenzie, rear view of Mackenzie there, heading up to the top. You can see the boys and the weir at the top of your picture there. Now, the clockwise courses, I mean, for an old dog and new tricks, man, we've always raced anti-clockwise. It would be like years of unwinding an old rubber band for me. I don't know what would happen if I tried to race clockwise, but it happened at the Europeans, and you could see how many people struggled with carrying the boat and getting in and out on the right-hand side of the boat. We've done it for years the other way, and it did confuse people.
Well, the first thing is going to be turning to the right. You're going to have all the boys on your right in a clockwise turn before we even get to the Portages. But Stott's been racing here. You raced very successfully. Double gold in the Masters Cup, it must be said. The drift you've known for many, many years, but has been dredged, and it's an equal depth the whole way through.
Yeah, they've done a lot of work here at Camps Drift, widening the course. It got a bit choked up with weeds over the years. It got a bit narrow, so they've done a lot of work to widen it, and it's made it very, very great for marathon racing and for international marathon racing. And yeah, it's made a big difference up at the top turn. It used to be a bit tight there for a turn, and now you're fitting a top turn comfortably in there. So widening of the drift has come out really, really well.
3 women's C1 just getting onto the line. So from Hungary, you got Giada Brigato. She was first at the World Championships last year and third 2 years ago. So she's the one to beat. But top of the picture there, Mathilde Tronsan from France. She looked really, really good at the European Championships. Pole closest to us, Maya Jadek. She was second at the European Championships, but never really in contention with the French athlete. But with Brigato in here as well, it's going to be a good race.
So, of course, with that false start, it's kind of thrown the timing up at the C1 girls under starters' orders. 5 minutes into the race, they should be starting around about now as the top group heads up to the top turn. And off they go. Good-looking start from Brigato.
The wash riding's not quite as straightforward in this. I mean, I've never paddled one, nor have I, to be fair, got much motivation to paddle one. But that's purely based on the fact that furniture shops only sell seats. They never sell kneeling pads, do they? So I'm guessing it's more uncomfortable than
the
sitting
Hungarian
down.
girl has made this race her own in the first 100 meters.
But the French girl also wasn't first to the turn at the Europeans. Then she came through and took them on. So she's going to be still worth watching for a while. But so often these races end up a bit more processional because of that wash riding difficulty. As they make their way up to the first bridge, it's single file for now. And Brigato starting up where she left off last year at the front of the World Championships.
Looking super strong. I must say, Ivan, seaboat racing is something of a spectacle to the local audience here because we never see them on the water. We saw a seaboat, C2 for the very first time in the Masters Cup, to be bluntly honest with you. But there's a lot of interest, and I guess that's one of the benefits of having an event like the World Champs here. It'll hopefully rekindle and spark a bit of interest in seaboat paddling.
It's one of the spin-offs from getting the gender equality in the sport, which is essential for all of us. You know, it started at the Olympic level with the IOC demanding equality, but it's about time, and the sea boats were one way of generating that equality. Unfortunately, it's not worldwide yet. I mean, you don't, like you just say, you don't have many canoes here in South Africa. We don't have too many. You know, we haven't got a Great Britain entry in the canoes here, and we're a big country in the marathon racing, so it's going to take time. But 5-6 years ago in the sprint racing, it wasn't a great spectacle, and now you've got A finals, B finals, and there's quality through the A and the B finals. So it's only a matter of time. We've just got to tough this stage out, I think.
Great crowd for day one of the Marathon Worlds here in Pietermaritzburg. Kaida Purchase doesn't miss an opportunity to wave at a camera, my word. It's going to be really hot in Maritzburg today. The temperature is forecast to get into the 36, 37, possibly 38 degree mark. So that bit of shade over the grandstand here, which also allows the spectators to have a look at the big screen, is the place to be.
And it's a lovely setup here, to be fair, Dave. I mean, I only arrived last night. The Portage looks beautiful. The stands are right on the Portage. The crowd on the site get a fantastic view of both turns and the start. And clearly a lot of effort's gone in from the local club here.
Brigato pulling away early on in this girls' C1 race. They're racing 4 laps, 3 of them with the Portage, distance of 15.4 kilometers. The girls who started earlier racing 5 laps with 4 Portages, a total of 19 kilometers. So they'll be finishing roughly around about the same time, I should guess, having started 5 minutes behind. Shaking a rattle behind them. Top girls should be heading up to that top turn can and be key to see what happens to that 12-13 boat bunch that was heading up to the top together, because that should whittle down, certainly by half. And there they come down. There we go, Ivan, 4 boats together coming down after that first turn.
So that's a fairly significant split, to be fair. I mean, we had 10 going in, 4 coming out. Well, we didn't see the turn, unfortunately, but always on the turn there's a bit of confusion. If you drop too far off the back of the group, it's hard to get round. But now it's Dorina Ficchetti leading from her teammate on the right there, tucked in the back. I think is Jula Hark maybe. But just 4 boats. Is that South African
Might
on
be
the
Samantha
outside, Dave?
Sula on the diamond, I think. And on the right-hand side, you see Christy McKenzie, the cousin of Caitlin, who took a swim at the beginning. Local girl has done really well to stay on that front 4 as they've gone around the top turn can. So there's something for the local crowd to get excited about. Should rack up the excitement as they come down in front of the grandstand. But Christy McKenzie, who was schooled here in Pietermaritzburg originally, took the big decision to move down to Durban at the closing stages of her high school career. A bit of jockeying going on there as Julie Hake goes onto the outside. There are actually 6 boats together in that front bunch.
Yeah, you got 2 just
Dorina
closing
Facchetti
in.
beautifully positioned on that inside wave.
That's the Spaniard and the Italian just making contact with that group again. It looked to be Nora Ray, the Spaniard, bit of tussle in there.
Whoa.
And up goes the speed. The Hungarians like to work together in the early stages. At some stage it turns into a race between the 2 of them, but you can see they've just got that turn of pace that some of the others can't match.
Christy McKenzie at the back is the one under pressure. She was happy to be on the 4. The minute the 4 started becoming 6, the 2 Hungarian girls decided they didn't want any of it, so they've just cranked up the pace and shrugged them off pretty comfortably.
Well, you saw Mackenzie clash with Nora Ray from Spain there. It's only a brief clash, but look at the damage it does to you. Yeah, it's a little moment in time that costs you so much work. It looks like Mackenzie might be getting back to that lead V. But here's what's going to be the second group. Got Czech Republic at the front there.
Katerina Malova there.
Great Britain at the back. Second Spaniard, which is Rita Fernandez, also in there. Boat 62, that's from Germany. The second athlete from Germany, Maria Mix. But 4 boats again. South Africans will be pleased to see that.
Ivan, I guess it's also about flexing your muscles early on. You need to kind of demonstrate what you're capable of doing and command the authority in that front bunch.
I think that happens more so in the juniors, you know, and especially in the junior boys where you got a bit of a testosterone overload. There's a lot of that goes on. But really, you know, if you can keep it calm all the way through, it helps so much in the later stages. People who take it on too much in the first lap, you often see them fade later on.
The 2 girls made such a big effort to try and get back onto the front bunch, but they've really been dropped with very little, pretty unceremoniously shrugged off that bunch. The Hungarian girls ruling the roost at the front.
And yeah, if they just behave themselves when they joined the group, instead of causing problems, people don't mind you if you behave yourself. If you're going to create problems, you're going to run into someone's paddles, keep tapping their boat, then people don't want you around.
This is the first full lap, and Dorina Facchetti is keeping the pace up to make sure that the girls that stay with them in the front bunch are honest and they're good enough to stay there.
Yeah, Facchetti was really impressive on the water at the Europeans. Her portaging, to be fair, was poor. Her teammate there, who isn't here today, was much better over on the land. But yeah, the depth they've got. Back at the Europeans, this second Hungarian girl, who's that's Chikos, she wasn't even in the team for the Europeans. They got someone else who came second there. You know, your top 2 wherever you go with whichever paddlers you bring. And we can't match that in any other country, I don't think.
Sikos going to the front now. Fachetti's clearly said, your turn to take up the pull in the bunch. Settles onto the outside wave.
So Julia Hark there. 7th 2 years ago, 4th last year. So she's got to be hoping for a medal here. She really has. She's put in the hours.
You touched on it just now, Ivan, that Portage at the end of the next lap is really going to expose any weaknesses in these front 4.
It's hard, you know, if you're in a group of 4 like that and you come out the Portage leading, it's a big decision to drop someone because then you don't have the option of that 4th place in the group again. So if you are the fastest runner in that or the best portager, you don't need to be the fastest runner to be the best portager, obviously. But you want to decide, do you want the 4 to stay? And personally, if it was me in that 4, I want 4 because I need the V for as much of the time as I can get it. So,
and from an elite racing point of view, if you're a contender, this is an ideal situation. You've got 4, you've got a working group that's going to grind away 75% of the race.
Yeah, a group of 4 on the front can work nicely. As Ivan said, you can rotate, take turns at the front doing the work. You get to recover in the diamond. So we should see this bunch if they work together. But you never know. These guys are all racing for gold. There might be a stage where it's someone's turn to pull, and they just say no, they're not pulling, and they're going to conserve the energy for till the end. But yeah, there's a substantial gap building between the front and second group. Second group, 4 or 5 boats now. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The race is still young, and I think there's a lot that's going to happen.
I think one of the patterns we've seen more so in the senior racing than the junior is that group gets away, and then as the race actually builds to decide who gets the medals, the group slows down, bit of cat and mouse happen, second group joins in, and all chaos kicks off again. But even though the second group catch them up, it's usually the first 4 who are in the mix at the end. So Hungarians are hard to catch though on the water. You can see them speeding up. They're just approaching the bottom turn now. And German, South African just struggling to keep in contact there. And as they go around the bottom turn, in front of us we got our first retirement of the day. Julia Lagerstam from Sweden. She took that early swim. So she's a retirement, and the girls come back. No portage on this lap, of course. So it's just the group's going to stay. And there's a sad sight of Lagerstam. It's a lot of work through the year to take a swim within 50 yards of starting and to do one turn and come in. I mean, when you're the coach, what do you say to that when she comes in?
Yeah, it must be devastating. She's come a long way. She's put on the hard work. She hasn't been training for a few months. She's probably been training for a few years to get to this. And yeah, that's it. I don't know if she's got an extra year left at the junior, but possibly not. But yeah, it's devastating to end in this way.
Well, back at the front, the Hungarian girls have decided that they're not going to settle for 4. They've moved it up to 2 coming into the completion of that first lap. So a big move from Faketi and Chikos. They've decided that they are going to leave the German girl and the local lass behind. Big move early on, Ivan.
And sadly for the South African, the German, that looks like a move that's going to stick as well. These 2 girls are more than prepared. Yeah, Faketi earlier this year did exactly this with her other teammate, and the gap just got bigger and bigger. So, you know, what do you do? And you know, you're one of the best marathon racing nations. What are you going to do with the Hungarians from here on?
And look at the pace they're taking off. This is a break with intent. And I saw Haka's stroke rate just drop. She's read it. There's a resignation about her stroke rate. So there's a race on for bronze, and here we have a race for gold and silver. Faketi coming powerfully past the crowd. It's so impressive. There's such a depth in Hungarian paddling. I mean, if these 2 hadn't been able to make it, there would have been another 2 to step in and would probably still be at the front.
We've had this conversation at every Worlds that I've commentated at, and still, yeah, nobody's done anything about it. We still can't chip into that sort of dominance. 2 years ago in Worlds in Hungary, the Hungarian team got more medals than the rest of the world put together. So it was, yeah, and that started on day 1, just as we're seeing here. So technically, they're good. They've got good boat skills. They work the groups well. But with those 2 stragglers falling off, it's going to be a target for the 3rd group. And the 3rd group, I think, will catch them at some stage. And that's a big motivation if you're in Group 3 to close that gap.
Gee, and they're driving a wedge between themselves and the rest of the girls, because that's a very concerted drive up to the top turn can onto their first portage lap. Great cheer for Christy McKenzie and her local fans here. There's the sea boats.
Meanwhile, yep, it's as they started out, and yeah, I'm hoping that it does turn into a race. I said the French girl didn't start so well at the Europeans, and she kept going and going, and she overhauled. I can't remember who led at the Europeans, but once she'd overhauled her, there was no stopping her. So this race isn't over, and it's actually going to get quite interesting, I think, by the finish.
And Stott ever jumped in a sea boat?
I must say, Dave, I have tried one. It was actually here at Camps Drift. It's a very awkward thing to try and kneel in. I jumped in and I managed to balance, and I paddled on one side, and the obvious thing happened. I did a full circle and came back. So I'm sure there's a lot of technique and leaning and paddle strokes that help you go straight. But yeah, amazing what these guys are able to do, a full marathon in a sea boat. It's full credit. It's amazing what they're doing.
Interestingly, we run development programs at home. We call it Girls for Gold. It's a big bone of contention. I hate it personally, but bringing girls quite old, really. You know, you're looking 18 to 22. They come in having done no kayaking or canoeing, and the girls who do the canoeing get their stability and their technique quicker than the girls who do the kayaking. So if you come in fresh, it seems that it's an easier thing to take on, which is a bit of an eye-opener to me. But certainly the kayak girls who come in at that age have very little success compared to our canoe girls.
I know from a physiology point of view, if you go to a biokineticist, they'll tell you that a proficient canoe paddler, as opposed to a kayaker, has got better all-round conditioning and one of the strongest cores you'll find of any athlete on the planet.
I just question their mental state, Dave, for taking it on. Physicality is one thing, but mental stability is something completely different. But here at the front of the junior women's, it's 1-2 for Hungary, and it looks like staying that way. So strong. You see the boats surge, see the boats lift with every paddle stroke. When you compare that, if we go back to the second group, every stroke, they're taking it in turns.
Yeah, they are. There's some chat and banter between the two of them. Suddenly the pressure's off them. What a fantastic position to be in. But it's Faketi that goes to the front right now, halfway up the turn up to the top turn can. Boat of choice, we'll talk a lot about boats as well because the paddlers are really interested in it. The Cinco, the boat of choice for Shikosh, and Faketi's in the old shape now.
That'll be the Quattro, yeah.
Quattro
versus Cinco there. But
personal preference, I mean, I know some of the girls jump into that Cinco and then jump straight out of it and go back to the Quattro just because they're more comfortable in it.
I'm a bit biased because I'm the dealer back in the UK, Finello, so my opinion might not be valid. But when the new boats come out, I have to be given one, and I sat in my Cinco for the first time, and it wash hangs better than any other boat. For me, if I'm racing, I only race with wash hanging, so it'd be a no-brainer for me.
So Rita Fernandez pulling that group as the sea boats come down on their first lap. Still Bragato leading that. But it's going to be a fun race between Troncina and Bragato in this race because Troncina is coming here with a big heart. She's had to fight back from that slow start, which Iman called.
And I think Troncina is a bit better on the land as well. And if it comes to that, like, if they're only that far between them on the last portage, it's going to be really tight.
And you were giving me a very short list of good reasons to paddle a seaboat. Not on that list is having to carry it on a portage.
Well, they're easier to get in and out of because you're already half stood up. So, yeah. But and the good portages in the sea boats make it look very, very easy. They get in and out without the boat stopping, and it's so impressive.
Well, the girls are on that first lap, which is going to include a portage, and key to the racing over the next 4 days is going to be the portage here at Camps Drift. You've had a good look at it. It's a jetty portage. I mean, you either get the beach-style portage, which we had in Hungary, or you get a jetty-type portage or a pontoon where you've got out in both options. So this is a side jetty portage, and you've just got to drill it. So be very keen to see how much work the girls have done on that takeout and the put-in.
But there's a lot of room for people to get in and out. It looks perfect to me. This would be my favourite type of portage, personally. And maybe that's because that's what we've got at home.
Well, very interesting to see Troncina already splashing water on her face. The temperature is very close to 30 degrees, and it's just after 9 a.m. here in South Africa. The heat is definitely going to be a factor. I'm thinking later into the day in the under-23s where it's going to be 36, 37, and they're racing the 19Ks. Rehydration and how you're planning your race and getting into that feeding zone is going to be critical.
I think when it's those sort of temperatures, if you're used to it, it's fine. If you're not, obviously, it's preparation that's key. You know, getting your drink on the day is a small part of it. It's preparing for this. It's being hydrated before you start, getting your balance of liquids right before you go. But
that's Zadek in shot.
It's the third place.
The Polish girls. I must admit, Poland's got a great tradition of seaboat paddling. We saw it in the Masters Cup as well.
Yeah, we have. But I was looking at this afternoon's races. There's no Poles in the junior men's, and that, like you say, they're stronger in the canoe races than in the kayak. So it seems odd that they haven't brought them. But a few countries, as soon as canoe paddling, like it or not, is European. And as soon as you take it out of Europe, then the teams have to make the decision as to whether they've got the money, the time to send teams abroad, and marathon is poorer than sprint in the whole of Europe.
And I know it is an ICF, flipping it and make sure it's got the longevity to actually last into the next generation. I mean, here we got 3 boats in the girls.
Yeah, the women's canoe is growing and growing, and at the Sprint World Championships in Czech Republic a couple of weeks ago, the women's canoe was similar in standard in terms of spectacle to the men's canoe, and that's come such a long way in a relatively short time. And what's driven that is Olympic inclusion, obviously, because there's funding, there's money, there's medals to be won. So in marathon, sadly, the Olympic thing doesn't come in. But
there's a great shot of Bragato coming around the buoy, and that's all about rolling that boat onto its side to get it to turn tight.
And you see Brigato's paddling on the right and Troncin on the left. And it's always a mystery to me how you can get around a right-hand turn paddling on the right, but they do. And in fact, they turn sharper, the people who paddle on the inside of the turn than on the outside. So it's a set of boat skills that I learned. It's not a set of boat skills I've learned personally, but you can see, yeah, they're going to be together for this whole race.
Gives you a great idea of just how close to the spectators that bottom turn can is. Everybody sitting in the grandstands here at Campsdrift has got a clear view, and when any of these races comes down to that final lap coming into the final portage, from a spectacle point of view, it's going to be absolutely great. The traditional marathon course is quite a bit longer than this 3,4 setup, but the compact course has got distinct perks.
Dave, to be fair, I didn't want to get onto this, but when men were men, we used to have to race a lot further. I mean, but yeah, they've changed it to appeal to the spectators and to the TV. And you've seen over the last few years how much the quality of the TV coverage has changed. It's gone up and up. And you know, if that's the cost of changing the courses, then I think it's a cost well worth paying.
So Troncin almost catching up to Brigato leading the women's C1 race, the girls' junior women's C1 race. Would have been an opportunity that I would have loved to have seen seized, to have developed this domestically, to have at least had one of the South African girls. She probably wouldn't be in shot right now, but just to have her on the water as an icebreaker, as a forerunner, as a champion for women's seaboat paddling, but it just hasn't happened.
It's
and
not just here it hasn't happened, Dave. You know, we haven't made the effort at home either, and it's something, yeah, if you're looking at medals, there's a cheap medal going here at this stage. And for a few years, it will be like that. There will be cheap medals to be had. And you know, we should get on the back of that as other countries. We do need to grow it.
So there are the splits, 8 seconds between Troncin and Brigato at the front, and Jarek already a minute and a half off the back. It's going to be a long, lonely day for the girls, but Brigato's being very determined about this. Moving in front of the grandstands here. Back now with the women, the Hungarian girls motoring away, rotating that pull. Fakeri now paddles down, letting Shikos go to the front.
It's almost like they've got a stopwatch on it, 2-minute leads. They've probably done that 1,000 times in training, as we all have. And it's quite brutal, though, when you lead in like that. I don't know if you've done it yourself, and if 2-minute leads is great if you're marginally faster than the other person. If you're marginally slower, you just feel their leads getting harder each time you sit on the wash, and your leads, you have to decide whether you're going to use them to rest or to push the pressure on. And at this stage, they're going to be 50-50, but later on, it starts to tell.
Yeah, exactly. Like now it looks like they're still going pretty hard, but they've got to decide. Although they've broken away and they know they're almost guaranteed gold and silver, at some stage they've got to make a decision on how much they conserve to make sure they've got the energy to go for the gold at the end. But at this stage, they're clearly working together nicely, and the pace is high. But yeah, they've got some decisions to make as this race gets longer.
There's the view back. The second two were caught. The second two was Mackenzie and Hark. They're now 6th and 9th, swallowed up into that second group. Milova from Czech and Isotta from Italy, Ray from Spain. It's a good, strong group. Not strong enough, I don't think, to make an impact onto the Hungarians. But group of 5, always a little bit uncomfortable, a group of 5. There's that one place out on the far right there you can see. And it's just somewhere where ideally you don't want to be sat. So that second group of 5, you got Ray from Spain, Isotta Italy, Milova Czech Republic, Mackenzie South Africa, and Blanche from Australia. And just off the back is the second German mix from, well, it's hard to tell with the camera angles how far she is behind, but that's a pretty brutal place to be, looking at a group of 5 working together.
I did notice the Spanish girl, Nerea Hidalgo, putting her paddles down, splashing herself. I mean, she's been dropped off the chasing bunch, so she's kind of sandwiched in no man land. There's a 4-boat bunch just behind her, but she's kind of got to decide whether she's got enough gas in the tank to put on a grind to get back onto that bunch, which was already a 5-boat bunch, or whether she's going to resign herself to tapping away the balance of this race on her own. Tough call. Well, the fact that those paddles went down and she was splashing herself kind of tells the story.
It is those telltale signs, whether they're looking forwards or they're looking over their shoulder. When when they come around the turn, how much they look back to see where the other group is. 2 minutes is up, obviously.
Rotate.
The watch has beeped, and the rules state that the lead has to change.
Now, these two would have raced each other since they were youngsters, because I know your average Hungarian starts paddling when they're younger than 10, so they would have raced each other through the age groups, and you can be darn sure there's no team instructions about who's ultimately the senior paddler here. They would love to both get that gold. So I imagine they're in that sort of numb zone where they know they're comfortably first and second, but they're going to start thinking through tactics for lap 4 and lap 5, and the Portage, it must be said.
I think the portages could be crucial here, for especially for Fiketti in the white boat. Yeah, she made mistakes on the beach portages. Maybe pontoons will suit her better. It's we'll see in a minute. Where they've only got about 1,000 meters to go now till their first portage, and that'll give us some indication of what might happen later on in the race.
And your footsteps are all over that Portage. What's key?
Yeah, the Portage is nice and short, so it doesn't give the good runners a great opportunity to get away. But the thing is with marathon racing is that the guys who were really good at portaging in the past, they were able to get an advantage of the guys who weren't that good. But what's happened over the years is that everybody has got so good that it's almost impossible to get away. So yeah, it comes down to mistakes and who makes the least mistakes getting in and getting out. And as the race progresses, fatigue starts to set in, and it's possible to make mistakes. So it's the guys who have really practiced it a lot will have the upper hand, and yeah, the hard training pays off.
So you can see here the Czech Republic athlete just trying to come around the South African. She'll squeeze the South African back into the V, and at the back there, 59. That's
Erin Blanche in the Australian colours.
Erin Blanche, she just needs to back out of the V. But we saw just before that a rear view of this group, and Erin Blanche wasn't using the front V anyway, which is kind of a junior girls thing to do, really. Yeah, that front V is your lifesaver at any stage in these races.
Nora Ray in the Spanish colours taking up the pull at the front of the group. The good news for the local fans is that Christine McKenzie is sitting comfortably on the diamond coming into the Portage turn. And the awkward spot at the back belonging to Erin Blanche in the Aussie colours. Gee, and that gap's ballooned to more than the 30-second split we had at the top turn. So heading into the turn at the bottom and then into that first portage. You see in the background there, anybody who'd been to Camps Drift a year ago would have seen that heavily overgrown. Part of the clear out ahead of this event has been the removal of all the reeds. It has had an effect on the water though, Ant.
What we noticed at our national champs is that when they took the reeds out, it affected the waves quite a lot. So the weeds were obviously subduing the waves quite substantially. But here at the Worlds, we've got a lot less races going on at the same time, so I don't think it'll be as much of an effect as at SAs. But it has made it more wavy, but it's not going to be a factor here today with the races being so spread out over 4 days.
So down they come to the second turn of this junior girls K1 race. It's Zoka Shikosh in the black boat, taking the inside line. Rule of thumb coming into any of those turns, Ivan, I guess, with that racing line rule is don't ever get caught on the outside. On the inside, I beg your pardon.
People would normally leave you room for one on the inside. You know, one's acceptable, two isn't generally. But it's harder almost to go round on the outside where Fiketti was there. You've got to really position well. If you drop back too far, you get pushed out by the plume coming off the back of the lead boat, and it's really hard to get round the turns. And I think with narrowish turns like this, you'll see that more in the senior men's when you've got bigger groups. It's quite hard to control your boat. You've got to move up, make sure you're in contention. Bow of your boat at least level with the paddler in front of you.
So Shikosh and Fiketti coming into the first portage on lap 2 of the girls K1 race. Shikosh up front. Fiketti looked like she might have been putting in a little bit of a burn to get to that takeout first. They would have worked that out and decided it's a very long jetty. There's probably room for about 5 or 6 K2s to take out side by side, so there's plenty of room. The popular choice amongst the paddlers seems to be to take out early and run long.
You run faster than you paddle, so the further you can run, the more gain you can make. But with the length of the portage, it takes the stress out of it, because if you don't arrive first, there's always going to be room for you. And if you keep a calm mind at the time, you'll always be safe. A little view of the second group there, and it looked like the Australian was struggling to stay on the back of that group of 5, just losing touch. Erin Blanche there. Hopefully she'll still be with them when they come to the portage. But here they come into the portage here.
Fiketti going short. Shikosh going a little bit longer. Into the jetty they come. Nicely out of that boat. Boat's in the right hand now. Oh, nose of the boat getting caught in the water for Shikosh. So it's neither of them are going to get great pass marks for this Portage.
Well,
and she's picked up some water in the boat. So Faketi manages to get away. Shikosh has to do a quick empty.
It's
the handles, they're picking up the boat at the cockpit, not on the handles, and off they go. Wow.
What do you do?
We're paying school fees on lap 2.
That's that didn't look too professional, did it, to be fair? I said that the Europeans, Faketi wasn't too clever on her portages, but it doesn't look like Shikosh is any better. And
bouncing that understern on the portage.
They'll be grateful for the minutes gap they've got between them and the second. Yeah, the rudder is the one thing you have to look after on these portages, and this they've got 4 portages to learn on. Maybe the last one will be better, but that's not a masterclass by any stretch.
Well, there's nothing more gutting than having to withdraw with rudder damage at the end of a portage. And I must say...
Oh, the angle she left that pontoon there, you did think maybe the rudder's not looking too clever. But they seem to be back under control.
And there's a huge cheer as Christy McKenzie comes in the bunch of 4. In fact, look at her. This is what happens when you get raised and weaned on doozies and portage races in South Africa. Overstern rudder, she's dragging that boat, and she's motored from being in 7th. Now suddenly she's sitting in 3rd, and she's getting whoops and cheers from her local fans here. 5 on that bunch. The Aussie girl still on the back.
Right to the end of the pontoon there. That means your first pull on that left side is a productive one. Yeah, that's someone who's practiced a bit, someone who knows what they're doing, and it's... Oh no, the Italian Isotta has just turned the Spaniard Ray into the side just through being too hasty to leave.
And she's now
it doesn't help anyone. So you just got to be calm. Yeah, there's a group of 4 leaving the portage together. There's no stress, but you can create an awful lot of stress in a very short time. Mackenzie not keen to go it alone, it seems. She's going to hang on, wait for the group.
Well, Ivan, let's go there if we can. I mean, let's assume there are a lot of people that have come down to watch the spectacle here in Maritzburg who are not hardcore marathon paddlers, and a lot of people watching the stream will not be hardcore marathon paddlers. So we'll just tick through the rules. We talked about the racing line rule. The key thing in marathon racing is the paddler responsible for the contact and the potential of possible consequences, and that penalty box in the middle of the portage zone.
Embarrassingly, Dave, I don't know the rules. I mean, the self-preservation, the rules essentially just mirror what self-preservation would be. You don't need contact. Yeah, if you're the lead person, you can't, if you're overtaken, you don't have a right of way. Yeah, if you're lead boat, you've got the right of way. And it's just staying away from other people. And if that means waiting for half a second to save yourself 10 seconds of grief, that half a second's very cheap. And yeah, I'm sure we'll see it again through the weekend.
I will simply put, it's the responsibility of the overtaking paddler or the following paddler to avoid all contact. If there is any sort of contact, the officials are all over the course. They're watching, obviously, the portages and the turns, which are the key potential areas of conflict. And if they do deem a paddler to be guilty of contact, when they come into the portage, you'll see somebody waving that yellow and red flag. They'll call out the number of the boat that then has to go into, it's normally a 30-second penalty, and they've got to go into what we call the naughty chair, the penalty box, and sit and watch as the rest of the bunch runs away.
Most of the penalties are around 15 seconds for minor infringements, but it's 15 seconds seems like a lifetime when you're standing still. It really does. You watch people run and paddle away from you, but it's a real fine line. Do you punish people for deliberate infringement? I can understand that, but for just incompetence, which is what we saw there, it's really hard to punish someone for incompetence. And it wasn't deliberate. It's just, that's how it is.
And you hear the coaches screaming, let's judge it on whether it had an impact on the overall race. If the bunch reforms and gets away, doesn't common sense prevail?
I'm saying nothing. You would hope that common sense prevails, but rules are rules, and unless you apply the rules, then the rules become meaningless. So I think, yeah, you have to do the punishments. The punishments have to be taken.
Yeah, these Hungarian girls are still working hard together. I think they're probably up to about a minute at that turn before the portage, but with the slow takeouts there, I think they lost about 20 seconds. But we'll probably see this gap growing again. They're just looking really, really awesome out there. I'm sure they're very strong flat water paddlers. They've probably done a lot of sprinting. And yeah, Hungaria's got an awesome depth of paddling. I've spent many months of my life training there, and you see the guys training from 8 years old at the clubs. There's a massive, massive depth and support for paddling there. And paddlers in Hungary, especially the sprinters, are basically like our rugby players. They're rock stars. So there's a big support and paddling support in Hungary. So yeah, these girls I'm sure can hold that sort of pace all the way through.
And Ant, I guess the key thing is the balance of interest in sprint racing and marathon racing and the synergies that overlap from commonalities in the training.
The training is very similar for marathon paddling, although in Hungary marathon paddling is very small compared to the sprinting over there. Sprinting is really massive, but yeah, the training is very similar, and you are able to do a lot of your sessions with the sprint squad guys and the same sort of sessions, and then just make sure you squeeze in 1 or 2 longer paddles throughout the week and do your portage practicing. But yeah, it's very similar training.
Well, Caitlin McKenzie getting lots of support from the bank. In fact, Ivan, she's rallied back beautifully. For somebody who was tipped out of her boat at the start, she's actually raced herself back into that bunch with pretty impressive courage. I hope she hasn't burnt all her candles early on. She would have had to work really hard to get back into the bunch.
It's a huge mental adjustment to make. You started in a big packed field and you had a plan of what you were wanting to do. You have your disaster early on and you have that regrouping phase. But once you've regrouped, if you can, like the Swedish girl obviously didn't regroup quite so well, but once you've got that, you've got a very simple job to do. You start working and you don't stop working until you get to the finish line and you pick up as many places as you can. It's really quite rewarding to come through a field like that.
So that's Julie Hack in the German colours, pulling Nerea Hidalgo. Also comfortably rotating the work at the front of that bunch, dropping back onto the wake, the wash, the wave, whatever it is you like to call it. What do you call it, Ivan?
I call it the wash. You guys call it
a wave.
Wave.
Yeah. And it's a wake elsewhere. So if it starts with W, you know what you're talking about.
We all know what we mean. It's just trying to place those two on the course.
Sitting in 9th and 10th at the moment. Sitting in 9th and 10th.
Yeah, Jula Hark, we had her down. She was in the front group, in that front 4. And then, boom, it's not been a great day for her already.
Brigato trying to put some space and a bit of a comfort zone between herself and Troncy.
Still only a few seconds, though.
I know we were giggling at Anstott saying he couldn't get it to go straight or scarcely managed to stay in it, but the stability in that, if you look at the boat from the front, and I'm really skating on thin ice now as somebody who's only ever been in and swum more than he's actually stayed in it, but having spoken to the pros that do it, the way that that blade exits on the side is where your stability and the ability to transition each stroke comes from. It catches right up close at the front, close all the way down to your hip, and then you'll see the blade goes markedly out to the side, and that's where the stability comes for your transition and your ability to keep that boat going forward.
Yeah, it's not just the stability with that, that's the steering stroke. You know, you've pulled on the right, it's that little flick out at the end that keeps the boat going straight, and yeah, it's a very skillful sport, obviously.
The only real growth in seaboat paddling that's happened down here has been in slalom, where we managed to get a couple of youngsters the opportunity to race C1s and C2s, qualified for the Olympics in Beijing, which was a really special moment. Youngster by the name of Master Kele, who grew up in the Valley of 1,000 Hills. He was given the shot to race a C1 boat. Special moment for South African canoeing. He was the first boat onto the course in Shunyi in the Beijing Olympics. Massive eyes, terrified young man, but gee, we were really proud to see him there. That's Kele with a C. We're going to have to teach you some clicks, Ivan, local lingo.
To be fair, I've been out here for quite a lot in the past, and I've never really mastered that, Dave. It's, people have tried. Many have tried, many have failed.
Okay, we'll do some Zulu 101 with Ivan. Kele is a labial click. You put your tongue up against the front of your mouth, so you make it.
I had to listen to hours and hours of Miriam Makeba trying to get it. Somebody force-fed me Miriam Makeba on every car journey. Still didn't get it.
Okay, we're going to start with Makeba, first of all. So everything going according to plan for Glada Brigato in the Hungarian colours. And I'm seeing that Hungarian medal tally. This is a demo event, so the girls are not going to get medals, but the Hungarian dominance that you talked about, and it's been historic. This is the 25th edition of the Marathon Racing World Champs, and Hungary has they've just dominated from the word go. There was a stage when Spain was dominant in the sort of Manuel Busto era, where they started making a big dent into the Hungarian medal haul, but the Hungarians are right back there now. They own it.
Yeah, last time the Worlds was held out in South Africa, that was Great Britain's heyday, if you like. So there, the club I came from actually ended up with more medals than any other country. So that was our top dollar then. We had canoes, we had women, we had the men. Then Spain took over for a while. Hungary now have been dominant for quite a while. But yeah, the closest to Hungary really is yourselves, the South Africans. You're the ones mixing it with them at the moment. And
well, if you look at the overall medal table, South Africa sits 6th actually on that overall list, simply because we've never got a seaboat medal. So if you take the seaboats out of the equation, it looks slightly more favourable for the locals. But over the years, and if you take the complete balance of all the events that happen at Marathon Worlds, there's just been nothing in it. And were you part of Cape Town 1998?
Unfortunately, was sidelined with a broken ankle that year, so I was a spectator. But I was also in transition years. I was just freshly out of juniors, and at that stage, it was now under 23. So yeah, I was watching senior guys who were way stronger than me at the time. But yeah, interesting watching the guys race locally. Bit of wind on the last few days, which made it interesting. But it was great to have it in South Africa, and it's great that it's back here, and back here in Pietermaritzburg and Natal Canoe Club. The hype has been building up in South Africa for months and months now, and everyone is ready. It's great to have it here on our home soil.
So Chikosh upping the pace a little bit at the front with Fakete. Something very mechanical about this front pair.
And yeah, you can see it's almost a K2 there. Yeah. Techniques are fairly standardized across a lot of the Hungarian paddlers. They have their method. Yeah, there's a lot of, see, especially in Chikosh's boat there, how much the front lifts with each pull. So she's generating a lot of downward force. That makes the boat go forward.
Is that Bob a Cinco personality trait?
No, that's just the way she's paddling. Very efficient, a lot of leg drive, a lot of force down with the top shoulder. It's just a massively efficient way of paddling, and it shows. Second group, still 5. So somebody's working hard there, and that was Erin Blanche, I think, still dangling off the back of that group of 5, making hard work of it. Sometimes it's really hard to break into the front 4 when they've sort of got their rotation going. You're always the one dangling off the back.
So it's Nora Ray, Christy McKenzie, Katerina Milova, Teresa Isotta in the Italian colours, and Erin Blanche in that bunch of 5 who, gee, now look, almost that's them there from the side. Roughly about a minute back, this is now suddenly a 5-boat race for bronze. It's going to be interesting. We're on lap 3 of 5 here, 3/4 of an hour into the Junior Girls K1 race. And give me a read on Christy McKenzie. She's, as I said earlier, she was a Maritzburg race girl, moved down to Durban to be part of the Hank McGregor training squad. Lee McGregor, the coach of that Mac squad that trains down at Blue Lagoon, and she unashamedly decided that if she wanted to have any future in paddling, she had to up and move, and she moved late in her high school career, and she's blossomed under the Mac squad down in Durban, getting her to the point now where she's potentially racing for a medal.
Yeah, it's great to have one of our local girls racing up there for a medal. I'm sure she'd love to be in the front there, racing for a stronger colour medal. But where she is now, going for 3rd, we're very happy with that. And this race has still got a long way to go, although the Hungarians are looking quite strong. But yeah, Christy, she showed us her class over the years, especially in this year's Doozy Canoe Marathon. I think she was the second in the ladies. So as a schoolgirl finishing second in the ladies, she's tough. She won't be scared of this heat at all, and we know she can go all day. So she's just got to be comfortable there, keep calm and relaxed, and I'm sure she's biding her time. She's trained for this, and she knows exactly what she needs to do to make sure she has the best chance of getting a medal.
Interesting little aside, Coach Lee McGregor, who probably from the South African team has got more athletes in the national team than any other, not here. He's got a yacht which is being threatened by the cyclone which is about to hit Florida in the States. So he's had to jump on a plane to go and rescue boats that are potentially sinking. So no coach on site, and if she was reliant on coach steadying the nerves, she's been without that for the last couple of days. She's a tough lady though, so I don't think it'll rattle her.
That's a tough call for some athletes more than others. I mean, some athletes are fairly self-sufficient. They just need a pat on the back and told to get on with it, but others need nursing a bit. And depending on the personalities, I don't know the personalities in that group, but someone's going to be suffering more than someone else in that group with Lee going away.
Well, it must be said, if somebody's been scratching in that group, it's been Blanche. She's had to work a couple of times to get back onto that bunch, so she's been the one under pressure. And if that 5 was to go to 4, I suspect Blanche, who's sitting on the outside wave as it is, as she comes under the bridge, is the one that's going to have to really mind her P's and Q's.
It's interesting with Blanche there. She hasn't come up to the side and sat second wash out. You can see she's sat on the tail of the Czech Republic athlete on the left side of the group. So she's just settled for being 5th in the group.
I must say, paddling on this course and being quite shallow, the side wash obviously works really well, but on the shallow course, the tail wash also seems to work. So where she is, she's probably quite comfortable, maybe even more comfortable than sitting on the second wash. And maybe she's actually conserving and she's not struggling as much as we think she is. She could be comfortable there.
So Isotta taking up the pull at that front. Coming past the start pontoon into the area in front of the spectators.
Isotta was 5th earlier in Portugal at the European Championships. Quite strong for the first half, not so strong on the second half. So, and she's doing a lot of leading in this group as well. So, yeah, maybe that will fall into the hands of Mackenzie, who I would imagine will get stronger relatively through the race. But none are as strong as these two. Unfortunately, the gap must be a minute by now. Over a minute, maybe.
Zoka Shikosh looking very strong at the front. Dorina Faketi on her outside. I'm sure they've got their paddling careers planned ahead of them as they come out of the junior ranks and into the under-23s and the places. I know Hungary has a lot of career path planning done for the youngsters, especially with boats. I mean, some of the youngsters that star in K1 suddenly get plucked out and become exclusively K2 paddlers.
Career path planning is one thing, but you've got to get in the team. You know, it's all very well being this good as a junior, but they've had 2 more at the Europeans. They've got 2 more from last year, the year before, and eventually you end up as seniors where you're all in the same race. And you know, you're staring down. Yeah, if you get in the team, you get a medal. That's great, but getting in the team is probably harder than the race they're doing here.
So Shikosh and Faketi heading down now. I would have scored them about a 3 out of 10, to be honest, for their first Portage. It looked like a first-time visit to the Portage. The big thing as well, they've all got the handles fitted to the boat, and on that Nella, that handle is fitted spot on in the center equilibrium of that boat. And if you just pick up the handle and carry it, it should be running almost trim of the ground.
Until the water runs to the front or the back. You know, if you haven't pumped the water out, there's schoolgirl error, or the pumps don't work, or there's so many reasons why things can go wrong, but you need to be able to adapt.
I think there's a massive factor coming into play here, whereas these Europeans, they're training in their boats at home continuously, everything's set up perfectly, and they take their race boat to the race with them that they've been paddling for weeks and months leading up to the race. Now they're in a situation where they've had to send their boats over 2 or 3 months before. They're not accustomed to the boats. And we saw clearly that handle was in the wrong place. So she got out to run with it for the first time and it was in the wrong place. So if she had more time here and in the boat, she would have known that it was in the wrong place. So it's a whole different element that it brings into it for these international races traveling so far. And as South Africans, we do it every year, so we're used to it, but for them it's a new thing.
That's a really good point. And preparation, you need to do it, and you need to do it well. Everything needs to be right for you. So let's see what happens this time. They're out, both slowly out. Shikosh just, I mean,
they're
I don't know. What do you say?
They're both definitely taking water. So again, it comes up to setting up and time to set up. Maybe the pumps aren't working. Maybe they don't have pumps. But if I guarantee you, if they were in Europe and they had their boats with them, they wouldn't have problems with water in their boats. So it's set up time. Maybe not enough time here to prepare and get ready in the boats.
That is your basics, though, isn't it? Your basics is make sure your boat steers well. That's number one, and then make sure your pump works. It's just bounced it off a rudder over whatever the black thing on the pontoon was there. She's put her paddles down. Racing. She can't even reach her paddles from where she gets in the boat. There you go. Like we won't see this on Sunday, on Saturday and Sunday when the seniors are racing. She's leaving the Portage with intent there. That's somebody who's not waiting for a teammate anymore.
So this is going to change the race drastically now, because now we've got one Hungarian ahead who's looking really strong and keen. Another one behind, going to try and close it down. But if she's unable to close down, we could get that second bunch closing down, and then we've got a second bunch fighting out for silver and bronze. But this is going to potentially change the whole dynamic of this race.
Every portage at the Europeans, though, Fiketti did exactly the same. She was that far behind, and she came back. And I had her down as being second because the last portage wasn't far from the end, but she still managed to win in the end. But the second group coming through, Mackenzie running well. Very tidy.
It's the only boat with an overstern rudder in it. Oh, somebody's dropped theirs.
Nora Ray with her there. Then from the Czech Republic, well,
Christy McKenzie running long, taking the pushing with the left hand.
Isotta away cleanly in the white boat as well, this time without holding anyone else up. So it's Ray, Isotta, and
McKenzie. Erin Blanche in trouble.
Erin Blanche off the back, and she's going to have to work hard. But she's closed the gap before, and she certainly set out with the intent to close it this time.
Christy McKenzie puts her paddles down.
And paddles have gone down at the front. How much do you breathe a sigh of relief when you're at the back like Blanche there and those paddles go down? You just, oh, mate.
Thank you. She's going to have to give Christy a big shock to after that portage. But no, it's great to see them back together again. Christy obviously deciding to conserve a bit, not feeling that it's the right time to break away. Yeah, she had a clear advantage there at the put-in, but decided just to conserve. It's hot today, and not work too hard after that portage. So she's yeah, and we're up to a minute now between the leaders and the second group.
Fiketti there in shot is going to close down, I think. She did every lap the same at the Europeans earlier in the year. There's the chase group. Isotta, the Italian, still leading. She's done an awful lot of leading in that group. Maybe she feels strong. It's hard to pick a winner from that group because Mackenzie clearly Portage is better than the others. That puts her in a strong position on that last short lap. Maybe not the strongest paddler, but they've got to overtake her. Fiketti's closed up. Just to lengthen it now. You should just see the tail of Shikosh's boat there.
You saw them going past Maya Jarek, the third of the girls' seaboat paddlers that are on the water. Murray Mix on the water, waiting patiently for the rest of the group to reform around her at the end of the portage.
Just waiting for Jula Hark. So Mix and Hark, they're together. That's the two Germans.
But up front, the Hungarian procession continues. They've really dropped down a gear into econo mode heading up to that top turn. They would have got the splits, I'm sure, when they came through the transition zone, that they've got a minute in the bank, which is super comfortable position to be in.
A minute's unassailable when you're those two. But what's more crucial on that, Shikosh, she left with intent and she was closed down. Yeah. And that hurts a little bit. If you know, either you call it a day, you try it for a couple of minutes and wait. But if she made a genuine run for it and was closed down, that really dents your confidence.
Florence Duffield in the Team GB colours, making up one place on the portage. Good take out by Florence.
It's not a happy day's racing for Florence. She would have been expecting or hoping at least to be up in the medals on this one.
I think that's Alva Johansson in the Swedish colours behind them.
Yeah, the Canadian.
No, I lied. That's Samantha Sula.
Just behind Duffield.
And this put-in starts with a small descent on the grassy bank. Paddlers were a little bit cagey about that. They thought that was the potential slip area, but it hasn't panned out like it has it.
Yeah, I think the natural grass has grown so nicely. The ground manager here, Ron Meyer, has put a lot of effort into the pristineness of this portage. And I must say, I didn't feel it slippery at all underfoot. So even though there is a sloping bank and the seniors will be sprinting through there at full pace, they'll probably be going sort of 21, 22, 23 k's an hour down there. But it's not slippery at all, so it works perfectly.
And you don't have to run down it, you can run along it, and the slope is obviously a lot shallower if you run along. And it looks fantastic, the whole portage looks fantastic. See, coming in the drinks lane, it's the lane closest to the crowd.
That's Caitlin McKenzie, who's really fought back bravely after that swim right on the start line. Heaps of support for her. Two cousins on the water today. Ivan, you nailed it. I think when it comes to Saturday afternoon and we're looking at the seniors K1 racing, it'll be very different. But off a jetty like this, if somebody has really drilled that and worked that hard, the chances of putting that boat in, moving, jumping in with one foot and getting going, it's some skill. It's a high risk option, but it could make you key meters.
If you can do it and you can do it safely, guaranteed safely, it's worth doing. If you'll see a lot of the juniors and the under-23 men, especially practicing through here, all doing that, and it all goes disastrously wrong on the day. So safety is key.
Yeah, we've seen the guys over the years, and they tend to be slightly conservative on the put-ins to what they're capable of doing in training. But one guy that springs to mind that used to do it in racing as well was Len Jenkins. And I'll never forget watching him Bagnoles at the World Champs there. And it was high risk, and we were on edge every single time, and that's what got him a medal in the end. So it can pay off, but it's very high risk and sometimes not worth that kind of risk.
I think the fact that you can name the one that you know could do it, and I've probably got 3 that I could name after being in the sport for 20 years, 50 years I've been in the sport. So it's very few people can do it and do it effectively. It's not something you'd advise to your beginners.
Top turn, and it's Zhikosh at the front with Fakedi sitting on her wave on the outside. And another beep goes the watch. Time to change the pull, I think. Officials at every turn, they've got a long day sitting in the sun here. 37, 38 degrees. It's going to be a long day. They're going to
people pay good money to come away to South Africa and sit in the sun all day. I mean, they should consider themselves privileged to be out there all day in the sun.
I did notice between the training sessions, if you go back to the athletes' village, they're all tanning. They're all on towels, tanning in the sun, so it can't be tough.
In Europe, we're staring down 8 months of darkness. If we got 4 days to soak up some sun, we're going to do it. I'm thinking topless commentary for the rest of the weekend. I mean, it might not be a spectacle for the crowd, but
I'm seeing a little commentator's cam coming into place here.
So the gap's opening up a little bit at the front of the C1 race. That's Brigato, opened up maybe 50 meters on Transan.
Long, deep stroke that, and it's turned out to be a pretty efficient one for her. And there's the chasing group.
Still Isotta leads.
Yeah, she's done a disproportionate amount of pulling at the front of that group. That's Christy McKenzie on her outside.
Milova on the right, just getting squeezed against the boys. You can, she got a boat up on top of Isotta's boat. It's Ray at the back who's struggling. Just going to struggle to get round the turn, and as ever.
And there's a bit of a move going on here.
It's Blanche dangling off the back. Isotta's trying to go. Ray is with her. Milova.
No real intent in that break. They're going to reform, yeah.
If you've been leading for as long as Isotta's been leading, to up the speed to a stage where everyone else is going to suffer, it's a big ask.
Yeah. But as is the way, I mean, you talked about your experience. The minute a bunch like that consolidates and settles, there's some discussion, there's some banter that goes on about just how long each person is going to be expected to take up the pull, and that there is going to be a rotation and everybody's going to pull their weight.
The trick is to feel good but look really weak and tired, and just claim tiredness the whole time. Sickness, illness, just do as little as you can would be the key.
I think as a junior watching the seniors race, I think, Ivan, you were pretty good at conserving energy on the diamond and on the wash, and using big bursts of energy to make your moves.
I think, yeah, if it's a method of doing it, then along comes Busto, and he raised the average speed to a state that destroyed an awful lot of paddlers. And then someone like Hank comes along, he has to find a new way of beating Busto, so the top speed has to go higher again. And it goes in cycles, I think. And I think for me, it was just lucky that my cycle was involved doing a lot of slow races with some short, fast bits. It just suited the way I raced. But you learn your way around the groups fairly quickly, and conservation is king, really.
But yeah, that group dynamic is really important out there on the bench, and if there is someone who's slacking and not pulling their weight, the guys tend to try and kind of work against them, and will maybe give them the odd chirp and tell them to pull their weight.
There's the splits in the junior girls C1 race. There's almost 30 seconds now between Bragato and Trans in the French lass. And Zadek nearly 4 minutes back.
They're soon going to be overtaken by the lead K1s.
So a quick wrap of the junior girls K1 race. It's still Dorina Faketi and Zoka Shikosh, the Hungarians who are dominating. And it's Shikosh who's at the front of that group. It's a great vibe amongst the Hungarian team. I actually noticed yesterday when they arrive. I mean, it's a bit like the All Blacks swinging into town if you're a rugby fan. I mean, they really do bring a degree of muscle into any event they enter.
A team confidence generates from success, and success breeds success, and they come here with the expectation of getting medals. They come here knowing that the other people are looking up to them already, and that is, it feeds itself.
They also travel well, which a lot of teams don't. The minute you take them away from the comfort zones of what they're familiar with, or the time of year or the season that they've been training in, some of the teams just unravel, but the Hungarians seem to travel really well.
I think when you've got spare capacity, you're probably not exposed to those fine differences. Yeah, if you're on the margins and you've travelled not as well as others, it shows. But if you got a minute's lead and you're just 1% down on your best, it just doesn't show quite so much. So, yeah, they're just a strong team, a team with depth, and yeah.
And they're a big team. I noticed they're managers and physios, and they're one of the biggest teams travelling. Izotta still at the front of the bunch here. Hasn't been persuaded to rotate off that front. I'm sure the girls quite happy to stay. None more so than Christy McKenzie on her left. Milova on her right. Ray sitting on the diamond.
You can see how easy Ray, the group stopped now, but yeah, the stroke rate from Ray and the amount of effort that's going into those strokes is so much less than the other. Everyone's happy to let Izotta lead. She's happy to do it. So crack on. The lead pair come, going to go under the bridge just to our left. About 30 seconds behind Tronsan, who's second in the junior women's C1. And 30 seconds ahead of Tronsan is Bragato. So we got Hungary leading the first two races. It's going to be 2 from 2 for Hungary at this stage.
You've got to start playing mind games at the end of this race now, because they're on lap 4. So they'll come into the Portage at the end of this lap.
This is going to be their third Portage of 4, isn't it?
This will be their third Portage. Talking about the wave, the wash, one of the craft that's relatively new is the boat that Hank's paddling. Very different in the stern of that boat, that Spectra. Very square with hard chines, designed to minimize the effect of the water as it leaves the boat. But one of the things it does is it hardly knocks up a wave. So very unfriendly to those trying to sit and rest on the outside.
I haven't actually paddled it, obviously, and I certainly haven't raced against it, because racing's a thing of the past for me. But presumably the wave at the side is the same. It'd just be the wave at the back that's different. With that thickness at the back, of course, the tail would get lifted better on the waves, and that's got to count for something. And I think that's one of the big benefits in the Cinco as well. You got a bit more volume at the back, so the boat then just announces better when the waves are right for you. And so, you know, with Hank's boat and the Cinco, I think, you know, wash riding's back to the days when the boats were wide at the back. You know, when the narrow boats came in, the groups shrunk down quite dramatically because they didn't wash Hank quite as tidily. So now I think with the big groups are back again, and that's great for the sport, I think.
A view up to the top, that's the bridge at Camps Drift Road in the background. See the two Hungarian girls coming down to their fourth turn, I beg your pardon, and on the third portage they're busy approaching. Beautiful spring day here in Pietermaritzburg. See, we're just coming out of winter. Country in the grips of a devastating drought, for what it's worth. If you travel down to Cape Town, you'll find that the city is now having to deal with level 5 water restrictions. They're limiting you to use about 60 litres of water a day per person. It's horrifically bad. This is normally their rainy season. They've had absolutely no rain. So they're heading into a summer where the water supply in Cape Town will run out. We're in the grips of a really serious drought here. You can see a lot of the background when you look at the wide shots here. The hills are very brown. We've had next to no rain. The region has been hammered for the second successive year by a really serious drought. Good thing that this doesn't affect the drift, of course.
So we had a shot of the chase pack there with Mackenzie taking the lead. In that second group is Otto finally settled back on the wash, but as the two Hungarians go around the turn, just ahead of Tronsan of France, second in the C1.
And Gikos has probably spent more time at the front pulling these two boats than her teammate Fekete.
Which to me would suggest she's the weaker of the two. That's the way the Hungarians work. You saw Van der Kisley race Renata Zay, and Kisley did a lot of the work in the early laps at the Worlds and Europeans last year, only to be overhauled at the end. And it seems like the dominant athlete gets to say who does what in the Hungarian team. That's only an overview. I don't know these girls well enough to know that, but that does seem to be how it works. But with Fekete's portaging ability and only 1,000 metres from the portage to the finish, I mean, she's going to have to do something a bit better at that final portage than she's done so far.
If you were trying to plan a strategy that would separate these two girls, I would strongly suggest that Fekete would be the one to be comfortable sitting on the wave, which means that if Gikos is looking for a place to make a move, if she could pull something special out of the bag, particularly on this portage.
Fekete making a concerted effort there. There's some intent. We haven't seen any intent coming into either of the first two portages. This is a step up. Gikos has matched her. Gikos to me looks technically the better paddler. Much tidier, a lot more rhythm to it.
And for all of that, Fekete didn't make any headway into Gikos. She is going to come in early to that portage. Let's see if she's going to show any intent on this portage. Fekete's out first. This is the third portage, but Fekete is staying to empty the water out of the boat, so Gikos is able to get away.
Gikos away well.
Suddenly she's got 10, 15 meters.
But despite the fact that Fekete emptied her boat there, she is doing a tidier portage here than she has done.
Gikos bouncing that understern rudder over some of the perimeter fencing there.
I know, and
look
right next to the fencing, the rudder, you can see it every time she tilts the boat up. And then they run over the wires there.
There we go.
At least she looked at the wires there as she went across. But why don't you run to the end? Run to this end. Yeah, she could have gained so much just by running to the end of the portage.
Fekete's run with the portage well, considering she had to stay and empty the boat. So these two girls are effectively going to be side by side. There doesn't look like any intent from Gikos to try and get away. So cat and mouse time.
So we're on lap 4 of 5 now. So up to the long top turn for the final time. And then the next portage is where it all kicks off. And I think that's going to be quite entertaining, to be fair.
Remember, it was exactly the same in Portugal.
Yeah, every portage.
She also told me at the interview that was, she realized she could never be good enough at portage, but
So Fekete and Gikos still dominating the front. We're in almost an hour and a quarter into this junior girls K1 race that's pipe opening the 4 days of marathon racing at the ICF Canoe Marathon World Champs in Pietermaritzburg. 25th edition of the race. The city of Maritzburg, which is one of the sporting capitals of this part of the world. Comrades Marathon starts in Pietermaritzburg and heads down to Durban. It's 90 kilometers of road running that I think is the largest of its kind in the world. Certainly one of the very biggest. It's all a product of the days of sporting isolation, Ivor, when we had no choice but to try and come up with new ways to amuse ourselves as sports people. So we started doing ultra distance. Suddenly 4 or 5 day canoeing races became cool. The chase group goes through it with Christy McKenzie.
Just dropped her paddles there on the portage. I don't know what was going on there. She
nerves, I think.
Must have just simple error, but she's safe on her portage, isn't she? I mean, she's still going to get in front two. She hasn't had the luxury of running right to the end as she did on all the others, but I mean, the Portages are hers, aren't they?
The Portage on, she's drilled it well. I mean, she spent a lot of time training on this course, but there's that small habit of putting the boat in with the nose pointing 15 degrees out, and before you even reach for the paddle, there's a left hand on the jetty, which keeps the boat moving out into deep water, so that first paddle stroke, whether you choose left or right, has got deep water under you. And and we'll go back there, she's racing that overstern rudder boat. She's the only one, I think she's the only girl in the entire race that's racing an overstern rudder boat. Whether that's a throwback to her river racing pedigree, she's probably got pedals in there as well, Ant.
Yeah, I'm sure she has, coming from a river racing background. I'm sure she's got pedals in there. She's obviously a lot more comfortable with pedals than an overstern. And it also it eliminates a massive risk factor of something going wrong. Oversterns generally are a lot safer. We have seen in the past where if something gets caught in that overstern rudder and then it doesn't drop down, but generally it's a lot safer to race with an overstern rudder. But what was nice to watch there is how the girls in that second group, they were just really thinking when they put their boats into that water. If you put your nose on the inside of someone's tail, obviously you're trapped by them, you can't get away until they're away. So to see them think and put their noses on the outside of the tails means they're free to leave at will when they're ready to go. So a lot of those girls have put a lot of time and effort into their portages. They've practiced hard, and you can see that they know what they're doing.
And that was exactly the mistake Isotta made on the first portage when she put her nose inside the boat, inside the Spaniard Ray's boat, and couldn't leave the portage, and it ended in a little bit of comedy. But they've sorted it out now, and when you go back to the days of isolation there, Dave, my partner and I, when we raced K2 back in, when we first came out here training in 1919, I think we were one of the first people to come in after the ban was lifted, or pretty much as the ban was lifted. And we were so welcomed because of that, and you know, I've made so many good friends out here because of that. And it is the perfect place to come and train in the winter for Europeans. No time difference, great weather, cheap once you're here. The flights are a little bit expensive in the winter, especially over Christmas time, but yeah, once you're here, accommodation's always good, food's always good, venues are always good, and the welcome is always second to none. So yeah, any team that's looking for training venues should look down here in the winter.
Julie Haak and Marie Mix getting away from the portage.
Yeah, Julie Hart would have come here with the medals in mind. It's the third year she's raced the junior, 7th she was in Hungary, 4th last year. And with that sort of trajectory, you would expect to get a medal here. And I don't know, it's just her day's gone wrong for her.
Giada Bragato running away with the front of the C1 race for the girls.
Actually, Tronsan ran quite well on the last portage, and the gap was less than 30 seconds again as they left. So they're still not over that one. You can see Tronsan just behind her, or just to the right of her on shot there. But the two Hungarians away and off. Group of 5 back together, and again with Isotta leading.
As she's done the whole morning. Christy
To me,
McKenzie sitting on the dive.
Ray looks the strongest paddler in that group. That's the Spaniard with number 7 on her back there. Although I don't know where she's going. So she's letting, I don't know, who knows what's happening in that group. You
and
can't
there's
always
Katerina
judge.
Milova on the outside trying to push her way through. She's actually been fairly anonymous in that group. She's played it nicely quiet.
But she was left with a weird decision to make because Ray went out to the right and Milova's there, doesn't know really what to do with that because it's non-standard. You have to make a decision, you know, is Ray going to go off and leave the group? It's unlikely. So you kind of come through half-heartedly and hope that it all gets back to normal fairly soon. Through the portage now, 16, 17 and 3. So 17, Fernandez, she was 3rd at the European. She's also having a bad day. So, yeah, not great for the Portuguese.
And there's Caitlin McKenzie getting the cheer from the local fans. Florence Duffield in the blue stripe boat coming through. Always tough to train up for an event like this and maybe you just don't hit your straps, maybe you're off colour on the day, and what do you take away from it? It's tough when you've committed so much time. Your federation has invested resources in you, so you feel responsible to them, and how do you sort of get back on the horse?
I think the first thing is that your federation doesn't judge you too heavily, you know. If it's a bad day, it's a bad day. The federation know the athletes well enough. They're not here because they're flaky. They're here because they're reliable generally. And yeah, you get off the water as an athlete, you don't really know what's happened. You just know it went wrong. You try and work out, you try and justify it. You might come up with an excuse that not to give outwardly, but just to justify it inwardly. And you're trying to find a reason why the unexplainable's happened. It's a horrible situation to find yourself in.
Well, a view a few moments ago of Shikosh at the front as they come around to the turn can. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Unpack the Hungarian way. You can see the style. People try and headhunt Hungarian coaches to try and sort out their federations and get them into medal-winning places. We can debate that till the cows come home. But that Hungarian technique and the way that they raise their kids from small is pretty distinctive.
To me, in Hungary, it's a numbers game. You've got thousands of people paddling. The ones who end up at the top are going to be good. They're going to be good technically. They're going to be good physical specimens. And kids learn by watching. So all the kids who paddle in Hungary watch people with a good technical model. And you can try and, I don't know if you've ever tried to teach any paddler technique. You can teach them all you like, but they don't learn anything. They just stay the same year in, year out, exactly the same despite all your input. So kids learn by watching, and the Hungarians have good role models, and I think that's the key. Having Hungarian coaches around the world, I think obviously they've got good role models to work with and they come to you with good results, but the number of paddlers that are in South Africa or the number of paddlers that are in Spain or the UK, we still manage to produce some paddlers that beat them. So we've got good coaches. We haven't maybe got as many good coaches, but I think we need to put trust in our own domestic coaches. And all countries like ours, we're still developing our sport. We need to educate coaches, and that's the key, I think, to growing the sport in your own country. We talked about the max squad. That's great. A load of athletes go to one coach who's getting good results, but what happens at the club that those athletes have left? The clubs that have sent the athletes down there need to educate their coaches. It's almost like they should send the coaches to the max squad, not the paddlers.
Yeah, we're fortunate in South Africa. We've got quite a few good centres with good coaches. We've got a great training base up here with Craig Mustard as well, where Andy Burkett and Bridget Hartley train. Cape Town, Peter Cole and the Orca squad, they also have an awesome bunch of paddlers, and you'll see them racing on later today and later on in the week. And Johannesburg, there's also a strong centre. So we are spending a lot more time on our local coaches and investing in them and their learning. But I must say, myself personally, I've come through quite a lot of international Hungarian coaches that have been shipped out to South Africa, and it's been useful to learn from them, because being in isolation for so many years, we didn't have much to learn from on the international scene. So having the international coaches was very, very helpful for us. So it's, they have brought a lot to us in South Africa, and they have helped raise the standard to what it is. So they're all part of it.
I mean, first one out was Nandor, wasn't it, back in the 90s? And what a great guy Nandor was. You can't help, infectious character and great coach. And then Tila Androvic you had down Cape Town way, still out here. Yeah, and it was great for, when we came out early 90s, the technical model out here was pretty poor, to be fair. And so you needed that input fairly desperately, and you needed to accelerate and fast track that process to get in a good technical model.
And we also had a zero Olympic base. We had no slalom paddlers. We had one sprinter at best, and certainly nobody with any credentials. And there was a lot of pressure from our Olympic committee to start delivering on that Olympic discipline. And it eventually produced Alan van Coller, and then Bridget Hartley, who went on to medal in London. But sprinting, definitely a Cinderella discipline. My word, you've got to force kids at gunpoint to go down to a sprint event.
Cinderella discipline here, but the princess discipline everywhere else. That's where the money is in Europe, and in Great Britain certainly. The fight to get paddlers to be able to do this has been a tough fight. They're sucked out of this into sprint, very, very quickly with the lure of Olympic glory, which Olympic glory is fairly elusive, to be fair. To promise someone that is a big promise, and very rarely can you deliver on it.
Hakan Mix going around the top turn can.
So from two Germans to two Hungarians, very different ends of the race. So there's quite a lot going on in the minds here. They know they've got one portage to go. Fiketti knows, that's a bit harsh, Fiketti knows she's rubbish at portaging now. Shikos knows she needs a fair lead coming out of that Portage to hold Fiketti off. Fiketti closed her down pretty convincingly when Shikosh did have a lead. So it's measuring your effort now. They want to work hard enough so the other one's not resting, but you don't want to work so hard that you're getting tired yourself. And it is just a measuring. There's two people who don't want to do any work right there.
I must say, Fiketti looks like she's controlled 85% of this race, and that leaves her in a very powerful position coming into a lap and a bit.
I love an underdog, and I like good technical paddling, so I'm going for Shikosh. I'm invariably wrong on my predictions for all these races. But yeah, that's what experts are in for, isn't it? To get things wrong. So the technical ability of Shikosh there is, to me, she paddles much nicer. But this is the real interest, I think. Yeah, there's one medalist in this group.
And amazing to see Erin coming up to the front now. She's been scratching at the back the whole time. I saw sitting first wash a little bit earlier. Now she's leading the bunch. So she's a tough girl, and she's really showed guts today.
Ray on the diamond, as she has been for quite a lot of the way. She looks, I don't know, she looks the strongest to me in this group. Again, I'm more than happy to be wrong at the end, but yeah, you got to pick your winner. You got to know your colours to the mast at some stage. I like the way Ray's raced in that group. It's been very conservative.
Just watching these Hungarian girls, you can see neither of them wanting to work now. They've got probably about 1.2 Ks to go to the finish. About 2.2 Ks to go to the finish. It's hot. They're also thinking about that, but coming from Hungary, it's a very hot country. They're accustomed to these very hot summers, and they'll be used to this heat. And now it's just mind games to see who's gonna do what in these final few kilometers.
Interesting. I saw Shikosh carrying her hydration pouch on her chest, and she's actually taken that off now. I'm sure with the intention of getting rid of that in the Portage, or maybe she's just going to leave it in the boat and hope that there's a new rule, and it's a good rule, that is going to impose a penalty on any paddler who discards that bag into the water. It's pollution. You're polluting a waterway, and it's blunt
those
terms.
penalties were given at the Europeans as well. Yeah, and quite rightly, after an event like this, I think they said we had something like 350 paddlers at the opening ceremony last night. Yeah. If you have a colostomy bag per lap per paddler, the whole place would be a wreck in no time. So,
well, it's good to see they're enforcing it, because when that rule came out, it looked like one of those mute rules that was there for, to make it look cosmetically good. But it's a rule that has to be enforced, and the paddlers are bought into it. I mean, it hasn't been a factor here, certainly in our domestic racing and in the Masters Cup.
It's quite interesting what we saw there. Is Otto tried to come around the outside of Blanche there and take the lead, and Blanche wasn't having any of it. So from being trawling on the back of that group, Blanche is now establishing a little bit of control here.
And Christy McKenzie sitting on the outside. Oh, she'll be feeling the pressure, the expectation of the hometown crowd.
Yeah, but the cheer that goes up from that crowd on that last Portage is going to be significant, I think.
And she'll come into that Portage knowing that she's been clearly dominant. And if she can raise her game 10%, she will certainly get to the front of that bunch.
What's interesting being on the outside, it's normally a massive disadvantage, but for Christy, what it does is it sets her up to potentially, if she doesn't get squeezed, to take out first, which gives her a longer run. She can take out early and run all the way to the end, which will give her a slight advantage. So although you would think outside isn't good, for her this could be good.
So there's a fair amount of needle in this group. Yeah. Pace coming right off.
Ray still looking very relaxed. In the V there is Otto moving up to take over. This time there's no resistance from Blanche. Ray coming over the wash there, did that very efficiently. And Blanche is going to be squeezed into Milova. Milova should be out of that wash by now. A little bit slow to get out of the way.
Nora Ray running her eye over this bunch, putting herself up on the inside, coming into the turn. She's looking very comfortable. That's mainly because her mum is batting me on the head, sitting behind the TV monitor here, trying to compose herself. If you had 2 words to say to your daughter now, what would it be?
Well done.
She's done extraordinarily well. Mom is bouncing around like a ping pong ball in a washing machine.
Yeah, we We got parents come up to the commentary position here to watch the last stage of this race.
The Seaboat race is quite open.
Seaboat race is closed up.
Because Transcend has reeled in Bragato, who's led from the word go.
They've also got the one Portage to do, and Transcend runs better than Bragato. Yep. So this is going to be really... this has been coming for the whole race. At one stage, Transcend lost about 30 seconds, and it looked like Bragato was away and clear. Yeah. But not anymore. They're nose to tail. Top two senior, junior women, rather, around the turn and coming into their Portage. Expect at some stage between here and the Portage that the speed is going to kick off dramatically. So
and Shekosh has led into the Portage on almost every occasion. Faketi sitting on her outside. And if there is going to be an opportunity for Shekosh to take a hold of this race and certainly give herself the jump onto that final 1,000 meters, and the last, once they come in from this Portage, it's 500 meters up to the top turn can. They then do that 180 and they come under the bridge, and then they've got 500 meters down to the finish. A lot of cat and mouse being played in this chasing bunch here.
So it's tough. You got Milova currently sitting. I think it's hard to tell whether she's behind Ray or on the side.
Isotta's gone back to the front again.
Isotta, the least calm of them all on the Portage. If anyone's going to make a mistake from these five, I think. But at the front, the race to the final Portage has begun. There's a lot to play for here, and they both know it. Faketi knows that she can't do her worst Portage. It's going to have to be the best one she's done so far. And Shekosh knows that she needs a significant lead after this. So in they come.
Side by side to all intents and purposes. Shekosh.
No emptying out this time.
Shekosh with a small lead, bouncing the rudder as she has done. Oh, look at it, goes over the fencing, over the cables. But she has got a 5-6 extended to 10-meter lead. So Shekosh leading through the final Portage. Faketi shadowing her. Bouncing that boat along. Let's hope the rudder can hang in for the final half lap, or at least the remaining 25 meters of the Portage. Cuts the corner.
Faketi is so close here that it looks like it's going to be hers, I think.
She's got to go. Shekosh has got to make it count here. She's been gifted, and Faketi puts the boat down on the inside of her. They are going to leave together.
It was the least eventful of all the Portages they've done.
And the most nervy, it must be said.
Yeah.
So Faketi, she'll be on their wave in a flash.
So they leave together, 1,000 meters to go. Faketi so strong at the Europeans on this last lap.
And surely Shekosh would have come away from that knowing that she was worked out and she was outpowered. So she'll have
Shekosh wasn't there at the Europeans. It was another athlete. So Shekosh is new to me, at least. She paddles the better of the two, but at some stage.
And talk me through this.
And here we go now. We got Ray coming in on the far right of the screen.
Mackenzie's going
in
strong.
The middle of the three. Isotta, probably the least calm of the three, coming in.
Mackenzie's out first.
Mackenzie out first. She's going to be away
Mackenzie
and clear.
taking off.
Isotta running well. Ray lost a couple of lengths there.
Fantastic run from Christy Mackenzie. Suddenly
Ray
she's in
ground
third.
all the time. Mackenzie looking very, very good. But Isotta matching her stride for stride. Ray's going to struggle to close that gap, I think, in 500 meters before the final turn. So it's Mackenzie running right to the end of the Portage.
It's a good quick put in from Christy Jo Mackenzie. Left hand on the jetty and she's gone. Oh, she's fallen in! This is it. This could mold the medal. Christy Jo Mackenzie has sniffing blood.
And Isotta's in the way of Ray.
Ray
needs to go forward. And it's all Mackenzie's. It has to be Mackenzie now. So there goes Ray. She's still stuck behind the Italian.
Oh.
It's brutal. But Mackenzie is away, and it could be first medal here for South Africa on race one. It couldn't have been a better start for South Africans. We called it before. I said Isotta is the one. She's the least calm on the Portage. And if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen to her. And it did. You just have to be calm. And for the Spaniard, that is brutal. It was, yeah, what do we say,
And the
Dave?
crazy thing, no matter what you do in terms of reading infractions and rules and imposing time penalties, the race is done. And Christy Jo McKenzie has sensed that she's been gifted this medal. She's taken off like a scalded cat up to the top.
You say gifted, Dave. She wasn't gifted. She organised herself. She organised herself. She was safe. She was out of trouble. There's no gift there. That's planning and that's preparation. That's the learning process.
Game on, Ivan. 500 metres. They've turned at the short turn. So
And
it's the
Shikosh
two
looked
Hungarian girls.
strong to me.
Faketi in the dark boat. Shikosh.
Shikosh in the dark boat, Dave.
I
Come
got
on,
that
get
on.
with it, man. Get
No,
with
I'm
it.
getting carried away here.
Faketi in the white. And there goes Mackenzie. Yeah, how's she feeling now? You know,
Oh, man.
there's going to be a little glance back at the turn, and she knows she's going to have third. But this is big. There goes Faketi. This is race on. This is race for the win here. Can Faketi get past Shikosh? It looks not at this stage. And that was a fair effort as well.
They've suddenly tapped back.
So for Shikosh now, she has to measure it out. If she goes too hard, Faketi can come past at the end. You have to measure it out and make sure that when Faketi comes by, this looks like it's for Shikosh to lose to me.
Let's see if she's got that turbo loaded.
This could be the first race I've ever called right. I'm quite excited.
And give me your read before it gets down to the needle bit.
Yeah, Shikosh is looking strong in the front there, but there's still, we've got about 250 meters to go, which is still quite far. So there's enough room there for another kick or two. So I'm not going to go with Ivan and call it. I'm going to be safe and say it's still open at this stage. And Christy looking good in third, though.
No, Shikosh looking so strong. Hopefully we'll see these two all the way to the end from here.
Shikosh is just raising the ante a little bit.
Just up in the speed, making it hard for Faketi to accelerate. They're under the
Shikosh
bridge
leading.
now.
It's 250 meters down to the line. Shikosh still in front. Faketi on the wave.
And here goes Faketi now. It's all in. Shikosh holding her. And this is Shikosh's all the way. I'll let you call it, Dave.
She's found the extra gear. There's the turbo. Shikosh has fired the turbo, but she's 200 meters out. Faketi's trying to stay with her, but there's no headway being made. Shikosh at the front. We know it's going to be a Hungarian gold, and it looks like that medal is going to be going around the neck of
Again,
Zotka
Faketi
Shikosh.
comes. It's going to be tight.
Faketi's fired the afterburners, but Shikosh is up to it. She's got a half a boat length to make. She's not going to do it. That gold is going to go the way of Zotka Shikosh. Second is going to go to Dorina Faketi. Super impressive.
If I hadn't been wrong 20 times before, Dave, I would say I told you so. but I'm really glad that the result was that way round. She was the better organised of the two on the portages. She paddled nicer. Faketi,
I got to say, there's tears from Faketi there.
there were tears before the start. So yeah, you got to feel for Faketi. Maybe it wasn't a good day for her to be out on the water anyway. Yeah, you don't know what's happened there. It'd be nice if we could find out. I hope it isn't anything too traumatic for her. But now, third place, and the crowd are going to go wild for this.
She's in camera shot now. Christy McKenzie.
She will have had a look back at that turn. She knows she's got a significant margin on. I think it's Nora Ray is going to be in fourth place.
But this will be surreal for her. Here's a young girl who grew up idolizing Hank McGregor and what he achieved, and he single-handedly changed the culture of marathon racing. Before she knew it, she was gifted a chance to train with him in Durban, forced a relocation down to Durban. It was a huge gamble. Has that gamble paid off? My word, it has. She's staring at a medal at her first World Championships in the face, and she's got 200 meters to come down. The crowd here in Pietermaritzburg is really on its feet right now. She's raised the tempo.
We need a bit of showboat in here. She's got the time and she's got the crowd.
I don't think
when you're in that position there, the finish line comes so quickly when you're safe.
I don't think she can believe what's happening in the life of Christy McKenzie right now. She's got her head down. She's got 100 meters to the finish. The crowd is bringing her home. Christy McKenzie is going to be getting the first medal for South Africa at the Worlds. It's going to be a bronze medal in the girls K1. We have a new hero in the house. Christy McKenzie takes bronze, and I think it has suddenly dawned on her. Reality bites. She's a medalist at the Worlds in her own backyard.
Yeah, what a great start to the event, though, with the home nation getting a medal on day one, on race one.
And Nora Ray seems to be leading home the Australian Blanche for fourth.
Comfortable in fourth. Blanche fifth. And
that's a good comeback from Blanche. She's probably had to work.
Stopping before the line.
Blanche is going to
be.
My word, that.
Maybe she hadn't thought that through entirely, I'm thinking. And just behind them, Milova, Katerina Milova from Czech Republic in 6th position. And in 7th, just to the back of your screen there's Milova in shot. She was 6th.
And Isotta way off the back of that bunch after having played too dominant a part early on. I think the rest of that bunch was more than happy to see her do the tractor work at the front.
Yeah, and just paid the price for her own, lack of clarity, really, at the Portage there. Yeah, she'd shown it on the first one. A couple of the middle ones, she wasn't too secure either. And coming round the bottom turn, we called it that, she was the one who was going to make a mistake, if anyone was. And it's such a high price to pay. She would have been thinking medals right up until that point.
Giada Bragato is still comfortably leading the girls' C1 race. A mistake, Ivan, but that was a catastrophic mistake, the way that it just shattered that group.
Yeah, you haven't just destroyed your race there. She destroyed the Spaniards' race. I think the Spaniard, the Italian, and Mackenzie, they were the three the medal was going to be chosen between. I don't think Blanche had the speed to be a player at the end, but it's so sad when it's taken away from them in that form. So Bragato seems to have fought off the challenge.
Well, she's earned the right to take it easy there.
What happened to Tronsan? We must have missed that, wherever that happened on the course. Oh, she's not too far behind. She's still in contention, but second place as she has been from the start. And race between the two Germans, Jula Hark and Mix, playing out in front of us as we get a view of the crowd. Stand nicely full there, and it's great to see that.
Teresa Isotta coming to the jetty at the end of her race, gutted. Tears on her face.
So Jula Hark, number 5, holding off her compatriot, Marie Mix. Jula Hark, not the day she was planning, I'm sure.
Well, Mix looks like she's enjoyed her race as well. Sometimes you can get to the finish line on the 3rd or 4th bunch, having had a great day's racing.
That's it. Racing isn't just about winning. There are people out there who come in any one of those positions who was expecting worse, and they've had the best day of their life so far. And to judge races on placing isn't always the true picture. But Bragato, she pulled away from Tronsan in that last half a lap.
Tronsan's about 100 meters behind. Looks a lot closer in that particular shots, but Giada Bragato coming down to the line. She's going to be the first across the line in a 3-boat race, effectively a demonstration race. And finishing it very powerfully as well. Heat's picking up here in Pietermaritzburg. I'm sure that's going to play a role, particularly when the boys get onto the water in a few minutes' time. But it's a good, strong finish from Giada Bragato.
So as these two finish,
Hungary taking first.
Third competitor, Jadek, has just gone through the Portage for her final 1,000 meters up to the short turn and back. I'm sure there'll be a big cheer in a minute as Caitlin McKenzie crosses the line. She had a nightmare start with an early swim.
Matilda Tronsen wrapping up the 2nd place in the C1 race. Down to the line comes Rita Fernandez in the white boat. Kate McKenzie, sure the crowd's going to give her a super cheer. All started off with an absolute nightmare, taking a swim right on the start pontoon. She's getting a super ovation from the fans in the stands. Whole thing will be one massive learning curve as well.
I think that's what junior racing's about as well, you know. Ultimately, you all end up as seniors and you all have to fight everyone else. So this is just a learning curve for these girls and the guys who are out later.
So wrap of the results then. That sprint finish in the end going the way of Shikosh over Fiketti. Christy McKenzie adding the bronze for South Africa, charging away on her own, and then that dice away, giving Nora Ray the third from Blanche. Milova taking 6th. Isotta, after all the drama of that final Portage, finishing up in 7th. The two Germans making up 8th and 9th. And Caitlin McKenzie with the top 10. She'll be more than happy with that.
Top 10 from where she started, that's, you know, pretty impressive. And, you know, although she might not want it to finish 10th, she can come out of that at least with a positive feel, and she will go onwards and upwards from there, I'm sure.
Spanish young woman Nerea Hidalgo, under no pressure, coming down to the line with Florence Duffield just behind her, making up 11 and 12.
Yeah, Florence Duffield, 4th at the Europeans, with a really good performance there, will be disappointed with today. But again, it's a learning curve, and she will move on from here. Be down to her coaches and club, parents to pick her up from this one.
In the colours of Canada, Samantha Sula. It's good to see a big Canadian contingent. A lot of the teams that have had to travel out of Europe have actually brought smaller contingents. I think Ireland's the exception. Ireland's got a good big contingent. That's always a good sign. Canada's got a good contingent as well, as Sula finishes. I'm looking forward to hearing from Doug Bird when he chats to the two Hungarian girls who've just crossed the line. So Doug's actually down on the down near the finish area in the Portage, and he's got the two Hungarians, and in particular our new girls K1 champion Zoka Shikosh with him.
Well, Dave, actually, you've got proudly South African with me down here at the moment. Christy McKenzie, ladies and gents, came here today with all the intentions of being on the podium, and she's done just that. What an exciting race it was for bronze. There were 6 of you charging for that final medal. Talk us through your race.
The start was pretty hectic. I found myself on outside wave quite a bit. But yeah, the Hungarian girls just have a much better sprint than I do. I've got to work hard on that for next year. And yeah, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to catch them by myself. So I just hung back and waited for everyone else, which might have been a bit of a risky move, but it seemed to work out in the end. Yeah, I'm really happy with the race.
Now, what a lot of people don't really realize is how tactical things get out there and how boat position really counts. It looks as though that you managed to find yourself in the right positions at the right time. Was that part of your strategy, or was that just how the kind of bunch racing worked out?
Yeah, I've got a pretty hectic coach that shouted us for being on outside wave all the time, so I knew that I needed to be on first wave or pulling. So that's where I was, and yeah, it served me well.
Very aggressive paddling into this last portage, and we know the portage is only as good as a transition into the water. You really stepped up the game there and putting the girls under pressure, some big mistakes made. That last 1,000 meters, what was going through your head?
I think putting back in for my last portage, I saw my little brother on the side there, and he was really encouraging. I didn't really think I could do it until he told me to put the pressure on when I got back in, and I'm glad I listened to him.
Well, there we go, Christy. Bronze medal. Well done to you.
Thanks very much.
Back up to you guys, Dave.
Thanks, Doug. Well, she's still looking kind of numb, to be honest. I think when she realizes the medal ceremony is just around the corner as well, and I think when they finally hang that bronze gong around her neck, it'll dawn on her. But wow, what a defining moment in your career.
What's really cool about that is she made that, you know, she's talked about it there, she made the conscious decision to wait for the group and to work the group rather than put away. That's a brave move, especially, you know, for inexperienced paddlers. You've got to be strong mentally to do that and to play the group well enough, which she obviously did at the end with the portage falling in her favour. That's really impressive.
Well, hopefully the Hungarian girls will be able to chat to us. I don't know if Doug's Hungarian is good or whether they're going to raise the game in terms of their English. But it really will be good to hear from him, because there are 2 names that I'm pretty sure on that showing we're going to see. I don't know how many more years in the juniors ranks they've got, if any, but they're going to be factors when it comes to under-23 racing, and the Hungarians are really good at nurturing their girls. Often the challenge is to try and keep the girls paddling when they get into the age of young 20s and all the other distractions that are in front of them.
According to the age categories or the dates of birth on there, Dorina Ficchetti's got 2 more years as a junior. Yeah, so we are going to see her around a little bit more. and in fact Shikosh as well. They both got 2 more years as junior. So they're 2 years younger than most of the competitors in there. They've basically butchered that field. And yeah, you heard Christy there say she hasn't got the sprint. It's not the sprint, it's the average speed there. Those Hungarians are just too strong. They didn't sprint to get away, they just squeezed the pace on to get away. And you know, that's something you've got to go home and work on really for the future. You've got to match that, you've got to be able to match that average speed.
So Doug Bird is with more of the medalists than the top 2 finishers. The Hungarian girls, a Hungarian 1-2, Doug.
Cool, so I'm here now, ladies and gentlemen, with our gold and silver medalists. Of course, it's Zolka and Dorina from Hungary. It was just 2 of you almost from the start. I would say just past the bridge over here, you managed to break away. Was it a strategy for you today to work together?
No, it was just come to go together and make a better time with us. But in Hungary, we did the same. So it was very good.
Do you two train and live together in training for the same club, or have you raced together before?
No, we train definitely. Yeah, and yes.
So now tell me, what's the plans for the rest of the week? Are you racing in the doubles?
No, we don't race doubles. We are going to the Olympic Hopes Regatta in Rasice, and that's the end of the year.
So for now, it's just party time for you guys.
Yes.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, your gold and silver medalists from Hungary. What a performance from them today. Dave, back up to you guys.
Fantastic way to pipe open the events, the first race of the 2017 Marathon Worlds here in Pietermaritzburg. We wanted hot racing. We wanted to see the bar raised, and the 2 Hungarian girls certainly did that. And it's been an exciting race for the junior girls over the 19 kilometers, and it's certainly broken the ice and got the pulses racing as far as the K1s and C1s are concerned. In a few moments' time, we'll be able to focus the attention on the junior boys, but here's some of the action that we saw as that group, which quickly turned into a 2-boat race at the front, and what an impressive metronomic 2-boat bunch it was. And then the heat came on in the chasing bunch, which at times was 6 and 7, and then 5 in the closing part of the race. Caitlin McKenzie playing her cards beautifully in that boat, running the portages really hard. And it all turned out to be defined by that final portage, which ended in a moment of high drama and opened the door for Caitlin McKenzie to scoot away and pick up a medal that'll be massively important to her, but it'll also open the swag for Team South Africa. The 2 girls at the front, super impressive, Ivan. And
especially now we've realised they're 2 years younger than all the rest as
yeah,
well.
That's just intimidating. It's just rude. It's just, and a great way for Team Hungary to, there'll be a spring in the step of every paddler coming down to the water now.
I think they just expected that to happen anyway. I think there would have been massive disappointment. I mean, these 2 need to work on their portaging, don't they? That's an area of improvement right there.
I got to say,
look at that. I mean, look at the difference.
Yeah.
Shikosh
really got out of jail free with that portaging. That rudder in the greater balance of things should have picked up some damage. But it was Shikosh and Fakedi that were cantering away to give gold 1-2 to Hungary, and the 3rd going to South Africa. Just a wrap up once again of the seaboat racing. Giada Brgato of Hungary crossing the line, as I'm sure she's going to do plenty more times. Maya Jarek coming in 3rd, and Mathilde Tronsen of France in 2nd. Temperatures getting up here, Ivan. You're having a look at the conditions here. I mean, the racing conditions, as you look at it, as far as the picture is showing you, look absolutely superb. So having seen the first bout of racing here, good championship course?
It's a lovely course, isn't it? I mean, I laugh in the face of these temperatures. I've just come from an English summer, of course. So, you know, I'm used to this sort of stuff. Now, the course is
about a week, wasn't it?
Really nice. It's flat. It's easy to see. There's no real complications. People are talking about a couple of little shallow areas, but that only adds to the intrigue. You know, everyone will know where they are by now. They've all been training here. If you find yourself running over one of those areas, you've made a mistake anyway. So, you know, it is. All the courses are fairly similar these days with the short laps. It is just, you know, it is a circle, but that allows us to get great coverage, and the viewers on site can see the race frequently. The weather's perfect, a little breeze to keep them cool out there, and it is a lovely venue.
The fans that have come down here have really enjoyed it. I'm going to ask San Stott, because a lot of the big guns were sitting in the shade of the chill zone, which is set up at the takeout of the Portage, just running a rule over the way the internationals were approaching it. There would have been a lot of talk amongst the teams about how to approach it, how to run the Portages. A lot of that will almost be sort of team decisions as opposed to individual preferences. But as you can see, there's a covered grandstand. Just to its left is that red chill zone where there's a nice chilly Hunter, which I'm sure is going to be in high demand later in the afternoon when the temperatures get into the mid to upper 30s. And some of the sponsors here have actually laid on a really impressive marquee, which is just to the left out of sight of the shot here, where you'll be able to sit down in a beanbag, get a coffee or a sports drink, and really sort of chill out and enjoy yourself. And all the international paddlers are actually taking advantage of it. And it's been really cool to see the competition start off with the internationals huddling together, rekindling old acquaintances before they actually get down to the job of hostilities on the water. So, and to the top guys, I mean, going into a Worlds, would you spent today sussing out the course and sussing out the way they're approaching
Gregory
it?
and Sam Rees-Clark from Great Britain on shot there. Teresa, mother of Magnus Gregory, we'll see him racing. And Sam Rees-Clark, she's raced for us so many times, senior K2 medalist in Oklahoma. Not racing here this weekend, which is a little bit sad. She's just come out to watch other people race. And it's great to have them all, fans from all around the world, really. There's quite a mix in that stand.
Just getting back to your question there, Dave, about what the top guys are doing now. A lot of the international guys, well, there's two places to be right now in this heat. The heat is draining. You don't want to be out there losing energy. So they've hopefully done their training in the morning. They might come out to experience the heat in the middle of the day just to see what it feels like when they're racing. But the best place to be now, if you're racing on Saturday and Sunday, is in an air-conned area where it's cool and you're not wasting energy. So what's great about that chill zone, that tent to the end there, it's actually fully air-conditioned. So there's drinks on tap, there's coffee on tap, there's aircon, and there's a great vibe. So the guys are having a great time getting together in that tent and catching up from years gone by.
Normally the air-conditioned luxury is only really reserved for ICF officials, so it's a real turn-up here having something like that for the athletes. It's a real step up. It's brilliant. And also just behind the spectator tent, you've got all the trade stands as well, which really adds to the atmosphere. There's all sorts of stuff being sold. You can't see it there. You can just see the mocha tent at the end of the spectators there. More fans. Don't know if you know those ones, do you, Ant?
No, I don't. But just getting back to the temperature, Ivan, it's actually quite bizarre. 2 weeks ago, we actually had extremely cold weather here. We actually had some snow on the mountains. And when I drove up from Durban 2 weeks ago to come and train here, I could actually see the snow driving into Maritzburg in the background. So it's been really cold up until about, seriously, Monday. This immense heat came upon us, and it looks like it's here to stay. Summer has hit hard very early in spring. And it's, but yeah, we've actually had some really cold weather for the last few months, so it's quite surprising to jump to this extreme heat.
What sort of temperatures did it go down to here when it is cold? What are you calling cold there?
Probably about the same as the maximum in the English
yeah,
summer.
Come on.
No. Well,
It's trying to be nice.
To snow, it obviously it's got to be cold. So in Maritzburg, we do get a dusting of frost on the grass in the morning, so it goes below freezing at night. So when the sun drops behind the hills here, it actually is quite chilly. But the thing about Pietermaritzburg, even if it's absolutely freezing cold at night, the sun always comes out in the day. There's no rain like you get in the UK and in Europe, and the sun and the warmth in winter is always warm no matter what. So we do get some.
I mean, that's reflected, I think, not just here, but all the World Championships, when a good 50% of the Masters racers are from South Africa, because you have got weather that you can train all year round in and enjoy your paddling. You can come off the water and have a beer and a braai, and that option isn't really open to you in a lot of Europe. So you don't get that same sort of old-timers culture brewed back in England, say. So it really works well for the sport as a whole here, I think.
So we're heading into the prize giving. Pietermaritzburg, as we said, located close to the city of Durban. It's about a 45-minute drive, so close to the eastern seaboard. The weather is generally good, and Camps Drift is one of the canoeing capitals and one of the sporting capitals of the country. And as we relax and get ready for the prize-giving formalities, maybe we can zoom back and look at some of the sporting culture. And if you do travel into this area, and I hope most of the people that have traveled into this area, unlike Ivan, who's going to have his bags packed on Sunday, heading straight for the plane, will have time to be able to soak up some of the sights and sounds and attractions that you've got immediately in this area. So prize-giving time. The medal ceremonies have great thing to have them organised as quickly as possible after the event, so the athletes just have time to get those tracksuits on. And just thinking for Christy McKenzie, the penny must be dropping round about now. And there's a photograph. We're sitting in the NCC clubhouse. You won that K2 gold medal in the Czech Republic in a year where, I'm not being horrible here, where I think we all sat at home thinking Ant's going to win the K1 race and that the K2 was a little bit of a bolt-on. But there's a photograph of you sitting with those earmuffs on. It was obviously miserably cold in the Czech Republic on that day when you won it. But there's this look of shock. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like shock all over your face. You've obviously come off the water, and before your medal ceremony, just walk us through that again.
Yeah, any medal's a great feeling, and for these athletes right now, it's now sinking in. They know what they've just accomplished. Gold, silver, and bronze right there. They've put in the hard work. They've been thinking about this for months and months and months, potentially even years. So the feeling that you get, it's firstly a feeling of relief because you put in the hard work, and then it's surprise as well because you kind of wanted it, but you weren't sure you would get it. And it just accumulates to absolute elation once you're standing on that podium and you hear your anthem play. It's an unbelievable feeling, and Ivan's also experienced it a few times. There's nothing better. It's just all the hard work that you put in, all the sacrifices over the years. It's all rewarded in that moment, and you feel it all at once. So it's a great, great feeling.
So it looks like the athletes are ready for the medal ceremony formalities, which are going to be conducted by Doug Bird. Those are the trophies that are going to be presented alongside the medals. You're going to get a typically South African lion made by one of the bead makers in the vicinity here. So of all the things you could get as a trophy, Ivan, you must have a stack of them sitting in a dirty cupboard somewhere, but that would be a fantastically cool one to add to it.
I don't have a trophy cupboard at home, actually, Dave. Everything goes in the bin. Yeah, I've kept the medals that are important to me. So I've got all my World Championship medals, and then I've got one that I won at a race in Brazil back in 1997 or 8 sometime, and they were the races that mattered to me. And I think as you collect stuff, it's like your toys when you're a kid. You grow out of some, and the next one becomes more important. Then ultimately you have your favourites, and it's. Each medal you have has got a huge story behind it, and I think Ant's dead right. It's a big moment when you're up there.
So the athletes are ready for the medal ceremony. Let's go to the medal presentation with Doug Bird.
Ladies and gentlemen, the medal ceremony for the K1 junior ladies will begin. Ladies and gentlemen, we present the medals for the Junior Ladies K1 event. The medals will be presented by Thomas Ginziko of ICF, is the ICF Vice President, and Robert Weiss, the team leader of Hungary. The bronze medalist is from South Africa, Christy McKenzie. The silver medalist is Dorina Fekete, Hungary. And presenting your junior ladies K1 World Marathon Champion, gold medalist from Hungary, Zotka Sikos. Now, please, ladies and gentlemen, rise for the national anthem of Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and show some recognition for your 2017 World Marathon Champion.